Welcome to Bathurst, ladies and gents, for the 8th and final round of AXRL Season 16 here live on TRTN. I, of course, am Regan Clark, and we start today with our championship standings. As far as things go up in the Platinum Cup, it has been an utterly dominant season for Valet. Having closed out the run of the Pro category in Zandvoort, further down the line you can see there it's still a very close battle for those remaining positions in the championship between Ololets, Chris, Yaldara, Ricky and Sly Vicio in that top 5. Rounding out the rest of the top 10 is Evil, Toothless, Concrete Ivy, Osmad, Snippy, and just behind him there in 11th is Dr. Krieger in the solitary Porsche of this championship this far up the running order. Further down in the Pro-Am categories, it is a very close state of affairs. 5 points dividing the potential championship title in the Pro-Am category and for the AXRL Gold Cup here in Season 16, Toothless and Evil in a 2-horse race here. One must also consider Osmad in third there, having dropped down to Pro-Am midway through the season. Still has a joker yet to play. This could make what is currently a story of 2 horses a story of 3. There's a pretty similar precarious situation going on in the AM standings down in the Silver Cup, divided by 11 points is Snippy versus Wolfdan. And so let's get ourselves acclimatised then, shall we, with the track at hand here, the Mount Panorama circuit for our 8th round of the championship, founded in 1938, a historic jewel of Australian motorsports, situated in the mining historic village of Bathurst, New South Wales. It is 3.8 miles and 23 turns of FIA Grade 3. And let's get a track run down by the driver in the centre of our screen here, and courtesy of our friends over at Nova Sport, with the number 211 of Sly Vicio. So Bathurst by no means is a easy track to conquer, and we'll see firsthand here just how difficult things get as we start immediately down at turn 1 at the Hell corner. It's a very sharp, almost concave left-hander that takes us onto the mountain straight, one of 2 incredibly long straights that's characterised here in Bathurst, heading down towards turn 2. Down at Griffin's Bend, a long sweeping right-hander. This is where the track starts to narrow up massively for our drivers here, heading down into turns 3 and 4 at the cutting. And we've seen plenty of mayhem kick off at this section of the track where drivers have piled up over one another, taking us up into turn 5 and 6 at the Quarry corner. Then up into Reed Park and Frog Hollow, turn 7, 8 and 9. It comes at you thick and fast in this section of the track, taking us up towards Solman and McPhillamy Park, for the run down the infamous Skyline at turn 11 and 12. This whole section of the track has thrown many astute drivers off the trail here, heading now through the S's and the Dipper. It comes at you thick and fast there, 13 through to 15, now turn 16, turn 17, down to turn 18 at Forest's Elbow. And a slight kink left on the exit of that, down through turn 19 and down the longest straight on this track, the Conrod Straight. We'll see plenty of slipstream and plenty of potential overtakes in the bookings here as we head down towards turn 20 and 21 and 22 at the Chase Complex here. See just how fast he's moving. Similar to the Circuit of the Americas, this is a super high speed area of the track down through turn 21 and 22. We've seen plenty of overtakes historically through our broadcasting here on TRTN at this section of the track, and that brings us down to the crescendo act of turn 23 at Murray's Corner to round out this historic circuit. And so let's try and get underway with the first of our interviews, and that is going to be with Season 16's champion, Valet. So we've just joined in with Valet now. Of course, it has been a very exciting season for him. Valet, how are you feeling today?
Good, buddy. How are you?
It's been grand. It's been grand. It's been a long time since we last caught up with you at the Circuit of the Americas. So what is most on our mind at the moment, it has been, of course, an incredible season, suffice it to say, and you've been on absolutely top form throughout. What are your plans going into 2025 on such a high note, and what is the road ahead going to be for you going into season 17?
Potentially just right now focusing on the AXRL Heat team. doing a few overseas early morning endurance races at the moment. That's the main priority going into next year. Probably going to be missing a few seasons coming up due to mixed Oz tag being on Wednesday nights, so I may be forced to miss most of next year depending if I play that or not. But if I'm not playing in that, I'll definitely be here on the Wednesday night, being our usual Wednesday night terror.
Yes, and I believe your next overseas event, if I'm not mistaken in saying, is the NLRL Console Endurance Series down at Suzuka on January 4th.
Yeah, that's the next exciting one. Need to probably start practice for that pretty soon. But no, I'm with my boy Tander. We'll surely be giving that a good old crack when the time comes. But we'll enjoy the Christmas break. We've worked hard for this championship, and we'll certainly have fun coming into the new year.
Yeah, it has been an absolutely grand show out of you. Of course, one of several championships you have now. Number 5 in the AXRL. Of course, we also have that little one in the Summer Series. But as far as things go in the AXRL GT Series, it's championship number 5 there after a 4 on the trot dominant streak from season 11 to season 14. Took some time off through season 15 and now back in action and going into 2025. It's going to be, I imagine, all hands on deck then for some of the other series, and hopefully we get to see you in the console endurance series in January. Of course, it was a bit of a mixed bag for the AXRL Heat team in the opening round at Imola, but if I know anything of you drivers, it is that you'll definitely bounce back from this, and you've bounced back from definitely worse than this.
Yeah, we had a pretty solid our car at least had a very solid performance. Qualifying didn't go as planned, but the first hour was really good for myself. We're still happy with the top 5 result. Don't get me wrong. It's a great goal, an achievable goal to get top 10s, which is what the AXRL Heat team want from us. So yeah, to keep performing. If we can keep performing like we did going to, I think it's a wet Suzuka if I'm not mistaken. It's surely going to be some quite fun.
Yeah, rumours are still aloft around the paddock that it's going to be a wet race. They're thinking it could be a transitionary wet race as well, so potentially going from nice dry conditions into the more characteristically monsoon-esque conditions that we're used to seeing at Suzuka. So it's definitely going to be an exciting endeavour for all involved, and it's going to be very exciting to see sort of where your career progresses here as you seem to be moving further away from the domestic and out into the international. It's a wide, wide world to be competing out there in.
Yeah, it's always fun to race the overseas guys. That's where the pinnacle is. It's always fun to race all the top esports teams on console, but I also love the domestic here in AXRL. I think I'm with Chris and the whole admin team when I say the personal BOP has brought the whole pro closer. I think we probably still have a little bit of tweaking to do when I come back. If I'm not racing next season, to just see if we can potentially get it a little bit more closer. Overall, the season has been lot more fun, a lot more competitive. I haven't been winning every race. I've had to be fighting, had to be making overtakes, had to be defending a lot more than I have previously when I did the 4-peat. But this one is especially special for that reason, where I've been sort of held back a little bit, but it's been certainly a lot of fun racing the likes of Sly, Chris, and Ricky, and all the boys.
Well, Valet, it's been a pleasure having you on. Enjoy the Christmas break, and hopefully we'll see you again in 2025.
Thanks, mate. You too. Have a good one.
And you. So that was Season 16's champion, Valet, then. We're going to move on to our next segment here, and that's down in the Pro-Am category. So now we have the pleasure of speaking with Toothless, now one of 2 in the Locked Horns battle for the Pro-Am Championship. Toothless, how are you feeling?
Scared. Nervous is the best way to put it. Bathurst is a really difficult track, and Evil is really quick. So
Yeah, and it's 5 points. I've never seen a championship come down to this close here at the final call. And obviously these are for the big, big seats going up in the pro category. So what's going to be your headspace coming into this battle?
basically, keep it off the walls is mainly the headspace. It's try and be fast, but keep it safe. and off the walls. Try not to damage the car too much.
And Bathurst is normally a track that tends to benefit I believe is the McLaren. So how are you feeling going into this behind the wheel of what I'm led to believe is a Ferrari? Our graphics might be out of date here. It says you're still in the Mustang.
Yeah, I am in the Ferrari. Yeah, the car's feeling good. It's a little skittish coming into the S's, but I think the Ferraris will outclass most of the McLarens here, just because of straight line. I know the McLaren struggles with that a bit, but yeah, it does suit the McLaren just a bit better in the corners, especially on top of the mountain and stuff like that.
And what are your thoughts realistically going into 2025? You know, if you can secure, say, for example, this championship and move up into the pro category, what's things going to be looking like for you going into season 17 if all goes well today?
Well, if all things go well today, then it's just try and keep up with the quick boys. I used to be pro, but I got dropped down to pro-am because of my pace. But it's come back recently, so if it goes well, I'll be up there, and it's just keep it together, try and be clean with the top boys.
Well, all the best of luck to you. We love a good redemption story here on TRTN, and it's looking very optimistic for you going into this end of the championship run. So all the best of luck to you. This is going to be quite the big challenge ahead for everyone involved, yourself included. So all the best.
Yeah, thank you.
And that was Toothless, one of two in the battle for Pro-Am. So if we just wait a moment, we're going to quickly try and get a word then out of the two drivers in the fight for the AM Championship. So now we're into the call then with two drivers involved in the AM Championship fight. It's Snippy and Wolfdan. Gents, how are you doing this evening here in Australia?
Mate, how are you going?
I'm great.
And it is quite a tense affair. Maybe not so much as it is in Pro, but nonetheless, you're looking very competitive going into this round. You've got 11 points dividing the pair of you into fundamentally different cars. Wolfdan, I know this is not the first time you've been this close to the AM Championship, so what's necessarily changed coming into Season 16?
I got really behind the teams championship and was really pushing to go well in that and get my OTM team up high in that. And AM points just kept coming in. But yeah, this guy that we're in the chat with, he has kicked my butt all season pretty much. So it's not as close as the points seem.
And Snippy, you're one of two halves of the winning formula for the Sir Jack Brabham Teams Championship. So what's been the winning formula for you?
Yeah, probably the same as Wolfdan. I was pushing for that teams because I was in Pro-Am at the start of the season and I was doing terrible for the first couple of rounds, so I was pushing for that teams and I somehow managed to get myself back up into the championship with AM, so.
And what's going to be your headspace going into this battle, of course? You're the one leading by 11 points here. But we've seen before that championships can rise and fall at this very track. So coming into such a challenging track as Bathurst, what's going to be sort of your modus operandi? What's going to be your primary directive into this race? What are you looking to avoid and what are you looking to gain?
Avoid all walls as necessary. Just take it easy, I think. As long as I'm around Wolfdan, I'll be happy, but see how it goes.
And Wolfdan, of the two cars in the fight for the championship, of course, McLaren versus Ford, you're in the one that is a much more capable pack fighter. If you are to get up into the scrum of it, what is it going to look like for you going into this final battle?
It's Bathurst. This is as much a battle against the mountain as it is against each other. So I won't be doing anything crazy, whether the Mustang's got ability or not. I'll be just surviving.
And for Snippy, what's things going to be looking like for you going into season 17 should you be successful on this round?
Not really looking great. I'm racing on controller at the moment, but I got a simulator that I'm about to set up, so I'll be pretty much learning to race all over again. So I'm sure I'll go back down to the bottom of the leaderboard for next season.
And similarly for Wolfdan, what's things going to look like for you going into season 17?
Not really sure. But going with OTM, I'll be having a lot of fun. I'm not sure where they're going to put me in class, so wherever it is, I'll be finding someone to have fun with and battle with.
Well, all the best of luck to you, gents. It's looking like a very fierce battle in the AM standings so far, and we're in for the final round of it, so best of luck to both of you.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you.
And that concludes our interview block for this evening. So we're now back on board with the driver currently setting the fastest times here in free practice after 15 minutes. The number 40 of Wooly, who still has a joker yet to play in this final round. He set a time of a 2:02.800. That is provisionally the fastest time on track so far. If we look at the wider standings of it, Yaldara's off by 2 tenths of a second, Ricky by 4 tenths, Mustard 27 was just out by 7 tenths, but Osmad slotted in to make the third slot now with 3 tenths off of that 2:02.8. Now, we were seeing times in the ballpark of a 2:01 before the session kicked off, so I think this is far from the ability that we've seen fully explored out of these drivers today. I think we'll definitely get to see a lot more of that in qualifying. Right now, it's the easy, calm area of this session is the hour-long free practice. We'll stay on board then with a few of these drivers on their laps around the track. Of course, we got to see that run through courtesy of Sly Visio, and now we get to see from the external view these drivers tackle the toughest section of the track then, down through Skyline Hill and down into the S's and the Dipper. This is a very tough section of the track. I've seen plenty of pile-ups, plenty of spin-outs, plenty of wall bounces. It is a near perfect line one requires to get a good lap in every single time. For Wooly right now, he's got it absolutely nailed, dead to rights there, out to Forest's elbow. And so we may as well start stat tracking here, because this is something we love. We love doing a little bit of number crunching here on TRTM whilst we've got the downtime to support it. 178 miles an hour there out of the Ferrari 296. Bear that in mind. 178. We'll see who's next going on to the Conrod straight here. It's the BMW M4, the number 97 of Glob Drip, down in the Pro-Am category. And we'll see. BMW is usually prided for its top-end ability here. 176, it seems to be flagging only 177 miles per hour from the BMW. That is genuinely come as quite a surprise there. Sadly, we missed out on the Mustangs, but we get to see here Ido doing 176 miles an hour, 177 just before he gets onto the brakes in the 253. The Mustang normally prided for its top end. Now, we saw its absolutely ballistic top end at the Circuit of the Americas, but here in Bathurst just doesn't seem to be connecting the dots properly. This is another BMW here, slightly damaged over the nose, the number 12 of Jude, down in the AM category. As he makes his way around the chase, but only 171 miles an hour. That shows you the drastic difference that aero damage is going to deal during this race, and you'll definitely incur a bit of nose damage in the sort of opening crunch down into the mountain section of the track. I'd say for a lot of the drivers here, it's definitely going to be an affair of how well can I deal with the damage and keep moving forward in the impending hour-long race. So we'll see here, Dr. Krieger next into the Crucible. That is the Conrod straight, to see just how fast we can get that Porsche to go. Now, Porsche normally have fairly decent top end. They're one of the most aerodynamically coefficient cars of the grid. It is the most streamlined of the bunch, but that engine is just not giving it the grunt it needs at the moment. Maybe now as we get to the downhill section just before the chase, we get to see a little bit more of that top end, but no. 172 miles an hour on top end. That is quite a concern for Dr. Krieger, and for any driver for that matter using the 911. See here a little bit of a battle going on. Saxey versus Cam, Aston Martin versus Ford as we head down into Murray's Corner. Now, obviously, we have plenty of time in free practice. I'm sure some of the drivers are going to get a little bit bored, a little bit interested in getting some practice battles in. Just sort of a bit of friendly sparring, as it were. The number 351 of Ozmad in the Mustang here, heading down to the chase. Currently third fastest in that 351. But yeah, the Mustangs seem to be flagging for that top-end speed. That is normally their strongest point. Ido taking his trip down the Conrod Straight yet again. We're 173, 174, 175, 176, 177, 178. So it has now only just matched the top end set by the Ferrari. But the Ferrari did have 178 locked in a long time before the Fords can. We'll stay on board then with one of the two fighters in the AM battle. Then it's I'm Snippy, who we had the pleasure of talking with a few moments ago. We'll stay on board with them over the course of this lap, just so that you can get an onboard from a driver's perspective. Now, outside of the footage we were graciously given by the folks at Novasport, we now get to see another perspective of this with I'm Snippy grazing the walls here up towards Quarry Corner, and that's definitely a little bit more than a graze if I had to take an assumption of that. Going looking in the replay, so coming out of turn 4 at the cutting, then up through turn 5. He already had a bit of a wall bang at turn 4, but as he gets to turn 6, he's massively undershot the corner, slams against the wall, back ends come up and away. That isn't grand there for Snippy, but he's going to keep going, and he's down in into Skyline Corner, now down into the S's. You can see as well just how hard he's having to wrestle the controls of that car. Of course, he is playing, I believe, on gamepad, like he said. So he's got an extra special challenge in keeping that car level and facing the right way, especially in one of the toughest areas of the track, an area almost purpose-built to throw drivers off the scent there. We'll just quickly see what the McLaren can do then down at the Conrod Straight, just as a current thing we're keeping track of. And with that damage, it's only 171 miles an hour. I think a lot of drivers are getting tricked into the sort of incredibly high downforce builds for this race, and that's going to come back to bite them on the Mountain and Conrod Straights, and we'll see that on lap 1. Anyone up in that front row using any drastically different setups from the traditional high downforce, low top speed configuration are going to be hit with a very nasty surprise going down to turn 2. This is Yaldara at the moment in the pro category, number 18, who's just had a little run in with the Wall of Death up in the mountain section of the track here with the Novasport team. Just missed out this season on the team standings. It was Shanghai Shaggers, of course, with absolute imperial form and 367 points with Snippy and Valet in the mix. Yaldara and Evil with Novasport are 67 points away in this round. It has been a bit of a sore runners-up position, but Novasport have had a very strong season. I think we've definitely been able to showcase some of their ability, and some news out of Novasport as well is that TK Zervinks will be serving his final race with the team before moving on next season. So they do wish him farewell, and things are going to be looking interesting then with that slot opening up in the Novus Ludo team. We'll be wondering who they're going to pick up and sign for season 17. That will be revealed in due course. Of course, TRTN are now sort of good, friendly relationship with the Novasport team, courtesy of our track rundowns that they provide us with. We've been able to showcase their skills this season. We saw it back in Snetterton, where they had a very strong opening qualifying, and they had an even stronger race, courtesy of Sly Vicio at the Circuit of the Americas doubleheader. So now we'll see in the crescendo act of Season 16 what this team is capable of once more. Looking elsewhere in that championship lineup in Season 16, the championship standings here in the final round. Novasport are relatively clear of the drivers down in third. That's the Out of Their Minds team, OTM with Wolfdown and Toothless in AM and Pro-Am. Equipe Espiritos in fourth with Ricky and Adeptalusa in the Aston Martin and the Honda. Must Lols in fifth with Grump Racing sixth. Novus Ludo in seventh. Team Spirit in eighth. MBU in ninth. On Throttle Motorsport in 10th. Fast Ev Racing in 11th and BBM in 12th position, rounding out the team's championships here. So it is an improvement in the bookings right now, and a minor one at that. We're looking at around 1/10 to 2/10 of a second here as we head down through Skyline. It's looking very strong compared to last lap there from Yaldara. Heading into the S as we go. You see, using every available inch of the track before we get to Forest Elbow there. Almost a little bit of brake lock there. You can hear the engine stalling out slightly and struggling under the brakes. And this is really what Bathurst brings out in most people, the most extreme setups. It's pushing both car and driver to the absolute limit. I would make the argument Bathurst is a circuit that requires more consistency to be constantly good at than a track like, say, the Nordschleife. Because unlike the Nordschleife, where there is available runoffs in most sections of the track, courtesy of a lot of grass, for Bathurst, that whole middle and going into final sector, there's next to nothing. It's almost I think one person described it as Nürburgring meets Macau for this track, and I'd say that's a very apt assessment of it. It is a very claustrophobic track, but that offers for fantastic racing and incredible qualifying runs. So at the end of that lap, it was a 2:02.532 for Yaldara, puts him third fastest in the session so far. Let's have a look then what's going on in the overall standings. Toothless now stands atop it with a 2:02.055. He's 2/10 faster than the previous pole sitter for practice, that being Woolley, who's now just heading down to the line as we speak. So we'll see, can he retaliate and find 2/10 in that lap to go back to the top step as he crosses the line? Does not appear to be the case for the number 40. So Yaldara we saw just lay in that third fastest time on the charts so far, with TK Zervinks making fourth fastest in his final run with the Novasport family. Osmad is fifth fastest in the Ford Mustang, furthest up the order for the Blue Oval as he just heads to the line now. Will it be a move up even further to that top 5? Not this time round. Slyvisio with Novasport and runner-up in season 15 is sixth fastest overall, 0.5 of a second off of Toothless's time. So this has really brought out an interesting dichotomy between the categories right now, with Pro and Pro-Am almost at level pegging here on times. We'll see if that's accurately reflected coming out of qualifying later on, but right now it is a very interesting affair at hand. Mustard 27 is now 7th fastest. We can see there, Slyvisio has definitely put down any naysayers now. He's put the second fastest time in by 1/10 of a second. He pushes any harder, he'll be up at that front row in no time. So Mustard 27 is down in 7th position. Ricky, long-time supporter and friend of the TRTN channel in that blue and yellow Renault-inspired Aston Martin livery, is in 8th so far, ahead of Ido, who's had a very strong season down in the AM category. He's always been on our radar here since the season's start, Ido, and that Mustang has definitely proven an effective tool in his hands down in the AM category. If we were to look at the standings, it may not accurately reflect it, but Ido's put himself in a respectable middle of the pack there, 10th, after only having done a couple of the races. He did join late into the championship, but has done impressively well, and I think if he continues on this form into season 17, I have no doubts that we could see him in the potential fight for that Pro-Am seat for season 18. Saxey just puts himself ahead of Ricky, then 8th and 9th now for the Aston Martins. And so I was informed by Ricky and Chris going into this round. A few rounds before, there was an Aston Martin 1-2, and I was saying to them, absolutely gutted that I couldn't get to see that. Hopefully we get to see something strong out of Aston Martin today. They are a very stable platform for Bathurst. I have first-hand experience in the very short tenure I did racing on ACC. The Aston did prove itself a very effective weapon. I was able to get a singular podium in Bathurst out of that, and it was a very strong car for defence. It makes itself as wide as possible in these areas of the track. I think Ricky and Saxey will be using that to their advantage to hold position, and I think it's going to be a double negative if they start battling each other. The unstoppable force meets the immovable object when it comes to the Aston Martins. Further down the line then, Globdrip 178 in 11th with Cthulhu 12th, Adept Loser in 13th, Evil in 14th. That is a long, long way away from championship rival Toothless. Looking in the Pro-Am standings, of course, it is only 5 points separating them. Evil's down in 14th, Toothless with a 5-point lead is all the way up in pole position so far. Now, we must consider they could be on different strategies here. One could be testing full racing load, the other could be testing qualifying trim. So practice is seldom an accurate assessment of things here. Looking then in our fight for the AM standings, Snippy is in 15th, Wolfdan's down in 20th, so at the moment Snippy still to the advantage, of course, with that 11-point lead. It's going to be doing him quite nicely coming into the 8th and final of this championship. Shamian's down in 16th with Ace Wolf 17th, Cam 18th, Krieger 19th, Wolf down in 20th, Jude in 21st. Concrete Ivy and Bantuski yet to have set times here. So having a look around the paddock, whilst we've still got quite some time here, 27.5 minutes until qualifying begins. We'll stay on board with Ricky then as we go over the news for today. We do have an interesting quaternity of news to bring to you. So in WRC news, the FIA debuts new revitalised Rally 1 regs for 2027, bringing us back to what many are believing is the second coming of the glory days of the World Rally Car in the early 2000s, now introducing regulations to accommodate for saloons, hatchbacks and SUVs. Oh, that's a big off for Ricky. Something has gone horribly, horribly wrong for him there out of McPhillamy. He's caught the grass, he's just understeered off the track. We watch here, it's been incredibly close for him. But going through there's just a lot of compression over the nose, then takes a trip over, puts him in a very unstable position. That's a big, big one there. That is the big one, I think. A lot of drivers are fearing on lap ones. We'll stay on board with Sly Visio then in the 2.11 to continue our run of the news. Running that special livery today for Nova Sport, swapping around with, I believe, TK Zervinx's car. Instead of using the red and purple, now using the yellow and purple. So back on the news, yes, the WRC regs are set to change for 2027 with the removal of hybrid, the cost cap being set at €375,000, bringing it closer in line to WRC2. Now, many have considered this the sort of neuterization of the top level of Rally. I would consider that Rally 2 already exhibits strong enough qualities to be a top step echelon for the World Rally Championship. All this is doing is taking that platform and beefing it up and opening it out. This is going to allow plenty more manufacturers to come in, and they're also doing a cross collaboration with the regulations of the World Rallycross Championship, meaning for manufacturers that have been long awaited a return to the WRC, like Subaru for example, this gives them their perfect opportunity to make that comeback to the World Rally Championship. I eagerly await to see what manufacturers get interested in this. I think we could definitely see a lot more than what we've got currently in that 3-horse race between Hyundai, Toyota and Ford. I think we could definitely see the arrival of plenty of other manufacturers that were former attendees to that top level. I'm talking Skoda, I'm talking Citroën, I'm talking Peugeot. There's going to be plenty of manufacturers interested in this. I know for a fact Stellantis is going to be first in line to register their interest for that. So elsewhere in the world, in F1, an interesting set of news comes through after the awards-giving ceremony by the FIA in Rwanda. Rwanda has now launched its official bid for an F1 Grand Prix location. And this has definitely come as interesting news. They're not the first country to be putting in bids for this. Of course, we have seen other nations join the F1 calendar in recent years. The United States, will courtesy of Miami and Las Vegas, now have 3 locations in Formula 1 instead of just the single one at the Circuit of the Americas. We've also seen Qatar join the fray. We've seen Saudi Arabia join the fray. So for Rwanda to launch an official bid is nothing out of the ordinary, but we are interested to see whether or not it will go through. It will mark the Rwanda Grand Prix, should it be named that, as the largest motorsporting event in Africa, formerly replacing events such as Safari Rally Kenya, the Dakar Rally, and the South African Grand Prix all the way back in the 1990s. In MotoGP news, a new 5-year deal has been signed for the Brazil GP in 2026. And things are starting to look up for MotoGP. We thought it would have been a bit doom and gloom since their acquisition by Liberty Media, but it seems already they're keen on signing new and exciting venues. I don't believe this is the same circuit they use for the Formula 1 Brazil Grand Prix. This is a separate venue, but they'll be signing that contract in 2026 for 5 years, running up to 2031. And in the last of our news, in the British Touring Car Championship, young driver Daryl De Leon leaves Duckham's Racing to join West Surrey Racing BMW for 2025. It is an exciting move up out of the Cupra and into the 330i for the youngster from the Philippines. So looking at in our Platinum Cup standings here, so we've just seen Slyvisio throw the towel in on that lap. Now going on board with the driver up in the front row, it's Toothless. So Valet leads with 221 points with Ololitz, Chris with 163, Yaldara with 157, Ricky with 144, with Slyvisio with 123 points to his name. Evil with 122.5 points, half points awarded for, I believe, complications down the line in the championship. That puts him half of a point ahead of Toothless on screen at the moment in 7th position. They're ahead of Concrete Ivy with 92 points, Osmad with 84.5, and Snippy rounding out that top 10 with 69.5 points in this championship. If we were to take a look at some of the statistics regarding previous winners here in AXRL at Bathurst, right now up in the air as to who could win. Right now it's looking like this man on screen here is in a very good chance of fighting for a race win here in Bathurst with the times that he's putting in. Previous lap was a 2:03.3, fastest still withstanding at 2:02.055, that being Toothless. But down the line there, looking at season 15, of course, we got to cover that and got to see Ololitz Chris cross the line first place in his Aston Martin. Yaldara won the season before in his McLaren. Chris would win back in season 13, this time in a Lamborghini for both race 1 and 2 of season 12, as it was a super sprint event to cap off the championship. It was a double header by Valet in the McLaren. Osmad won in season 11 in the Mercedes. I think that is the last time we've seen the Mercedes win in a long time. It's just not been the car to be over the course of the last couple of seasons, just with the new meta in place on ACC. Concrete Ivy taking back-to-backs in season 9 and 10 with the Aston Martin and the Honda. Of course, we flashed this graphic up earlier when we were having a chat with our championship winners, but these are the championship winners over the last couple of seasons. Of course, Valet already having wrapped up our run of things in the Pro category, but it still leaves Pro-Am and Am completely out in the open. Last season, it was Tandersport, Ben, and Adept Loser that won in all 3 of those categories. Valet would take his 4 streak from season 11 to season 14. In season 14, it was Yaldara and Evil winning in Pro-Am and Am, Nash GT and Faroujim winning in Pro-Am and Am in season 13. It was a bit of an interesting affair, as there was also the Bronze Cup and the Challenger Cup, if I'm led to believe correctly, in season 12, which gave us 4 champions: Valet, Saxy, Twistin33 and Little Jimmy R. In season 11, it was Valet, Rippenora and Zeljans. In season 10, it was Untamed, Osmad and S. Shamian, and in season 9 there were only 2 categories at play. That was won by Concrete Ivy and Ricky. So, still 2 champions left to crown. And with that Constructors rounded out as well, that is all we've got left, is Pro-Am and Am. And Toothless coming into this raring and ready to go with the fastest time of the session. Still holding on to that, and respectfully so there. A 2:02.055 is a tough one to beat. And having a look around the field here, Slyvisio's crossed the line, but not to an improvement of position just yet. He'll need one more lap before he can see something like that come to fruition. So just under 20 minutes left to go before qualifying. We'll stay on board and sort of give you the soundtrack of the cars here. As I believe Toothless has just gone in at the wall. I think he might be throwing the towel in on this run. So we'll cut away from him and try and find one of the other drivers here. This is Wooly, who we caught earlier and was our previous fastest time setter. And as far as things go for Wooly in the championship, now, he came into this season relatively unknown, at least to us, but over the course of the championship, it has been an interesting one to observe for Wooly. He's just at the back of the top 10 behind TK Zervinks, but like TK Zervinks and plenty of the drivers around him at that stage of the Pro-Am Championship, he has a lot to play with that Joker still available. So it could be a shift in position, a shift maybe up to the top 5 with where he's standing at the moment. It is a very strong points yield if he can finish 3rd overall. Of course, that is still a monumental set of boots to fill with a championship grid this competitive. You see, it was alongside Globdrip there, and I didn't want to draw attention to this, but I just feel the mean to mention what on earth had to have happened for the BMW to be coming into the final round of the championship with negative points to his name. I've never seen that before. Did not even know it was even mathematically possible for such a thing. I'm used to seeing drivers coming into the last leg of the championship with still no points to their name, but minus points. Is he going to have to give one back to the stewards at the end of the season then? I'm not really sure how that whole system is working for him. I think it may be something to do with withstanding penalties or such, but that is genuinely quite a bizarre sight. Well, that's a big trip to the wall for Evil there, as we just cut across to cover Mustard 27. Let's just get a look at that on the replay. Just as we cut across, this was coming out of turn 18 at Forest's elbow. We were checking in with Wooly. We cut away as he's gone into turn 2. We've gone down to Mustard. We could just see exiting or entering turn 18. Exiting turn 18, though, was Evil, who caught a big tail end of the grass, and that was just enough to upset him coming out of turn 18, and he was in at the wall. So we'll stay on board with Mustard 27 over the course of this lap. We'll be back in just a moment's time. So then we catch back on board with Mustard 27 here as it just gets down through Skyline and into the S's. You can see just how claustrophobic this section of the track is for these drivers here. They're working with next to no room. And I think should we even dare to see drivers go side by side, it could certainly end in chaos. I think we're not going to be exactly out of the woods to see that in lap 1 of this race. If we were to take a look back to last season, if we remember correctly, it was absolute chaos on that opening lap in the mid-pack. For Mustard, he's just sort of at the front of that middle field, just outside of being outside of that top 10, just inside the top 10, I should say. See, that was TK Zerving, so I believe just took a very hefty chunk of the grass with him there at the chase. It was very late on the brakes. Mustard's going to be coming into the pits then, won't be capping off this lap with a new time. We'll try and catch on board with another driver that we've not seen so far. I think this is a bit of a late entry for this session. Bantuska is off in the gravel there, but we're following with the number 5 of Anzac Comet, who's just come to a stop there at the Skyline Hill. That's unfortunate. So let's catch on board with Ace Wolf then. Heading now down Conrod Straight in the 911 bright green and bright blue, bright fluorescent colours then for the 992. Heading down to the chase, 171 miles an hour, 172. Now, given that that's not got any major damages, that is quite bad for Porsche. That is not a good sign then. They're going to have to move heaven and earth in the opening and middle sector, because down the final, they are really, really vulnerable to the cars around them, Ferrari and Ford included. Willie's still holding on to that fastest time. What we see here with Dr. Krieger, he's got Globdrip and Wooly behind him. One of the other Porsches in this fight at the moment, just like Ace Wolf. You can make the argument that Porsche still have a lot invested in this fight. The 911 is one of the more manoeuvrable cars, and it definitely does flourish in tricky technical tracks like this. Other examples could of course be the Nürburgring and tracks like the Hungaroring and Zolder. But there are a lot of tight technical corners to combat with. But for Krieger at the moment, he's got it dead to rights in the middle sector, but just like Ace Wolf, you get down to that final sector and it's just floundering for time there. And not only, like we mentioned like we heard in the interviews with our drivers fighting for the AM title, it is just as much a battle with the mountain as it is with your car. And we saw that come to fruition there for Dr. Krieger as he got a little bit tail happy down through Skyline. And that is something they're constantly going to have weighing heavy on their minds, especially going into this race an hour before the checkered flag. A lot of time to cover at a track like this. You're looking at around 30 laps of racing, give or take. And for each one of those laps, it's going to be weighing heavy on his mind. Is this going to be the corner the car gives up on me? Because it's going to be a battle of willpower here, of both man and machine. We've seen it time and time again at Bathurst, how it always seems to prove that point. Concrete Ivy crosses the line then to start a flying lap. Down into Hell Corner he goes then. The Mustang in a very familiar territory here. Of course, that generation of the Mustang, the S650, was first turned into a NASCAR and a V8 supercar before it made its debut to GT3 racing. It is right at home here at a track like Bathurst. But Yaldara ahead of him up in 6th position, but for Concrete Ivy this is the first of the flying laps. 12 minutes left to go then, 2:47 PM local time. Nice bright sunny conditions and a very stark contrast to how things are like for us here on TRT and over in the UK. It's a nice summer conditions going into Christmas time in Australia. It is very grey and very muddy here in the UK, so can't say that I share your sunny predicament. But what it's given the Aussies so far is a very, very good set of conditions for hot lapping. Not too hot, not too cold, just right here. We're in the Goldilocks zone for track conditions here in Bathurst. And that's all you can really hope for. And the worst thing you could expect to see is the track get a little too cold or a little too hot. Or worse, wet. You must consider as well, coming into this round, Concrete Ivy does have a Joker yet to play. For those of you just tuning into the AXRL series, a Joker is a single-use token the drivers get given at the start of every season. They can choose to play it at whatever round, and it doubles their points yield depending on where they finish. So say, for example, you were to get 25 points with a Joker in effect, that would go up to 50. So for Concrete Ivy, if we have a look at where he is in the overall standings, now he's down in 8th position. Could definitely see himself leapfrog maybe a position or two here, depending on where he goes. And as he crosses the line, he puts the 3rd fastest time in a 2:01.845. So just as we predicted, we're going to start seeing those times in the 2:01s. Woolly's already done a 2:01.4, Toothless 3 tenths off the beat there. And only a few hundredths behind him is Concrete Ivy. Now, if we were to take a look back yet again at our previous winners here in Bathurst, Concrete Ivy is no stranger to the mountain here, having won 2 times before back in Season 10 and Season 9 in mid and front engined cars. So now in the 2024 Ford Mustang, it is not exactly too far a cry to call that he could gun for another win here after plenty of seasons out of it. Just like the Aston Martin, it's just wide enough to secure most of that track for its own when defending, and it's just sturdy enough to take some of the punishment the mountain dishes out as you head into its more technical sections. We'll see the dichotomy between mid and front engined here as we get down into a very high manoeuvrability section of the track, that being Skyline Hill into the S's and the Dipper. You see that the McLaren and the Mustang very close. Who was that there? I believe that was Snippy in that orange McLaren there at the side of the road. But our focus still tuned to these two. Yaldara shoves out of the way out of turn 18 to let Concrete Ivy get him by, and right now he is absolutely flying round the track, albeit has had lost quite some time down in the S's because of that obstruction. He's currently sitting 5 tenths away, but that opening sector, and especially that middle sector up until that point, he was absolutely dead to rights in the Mustang. We can see 178 miles an hour, so he's running a lower downforce setup. You can see that come back to bite him a little bit at the chase. But definitely keep an eye on this one. Coming into this round, I can definitely see great things coming out of that Mustang. Let's hope that the commentator's curse isn't around for round 8. Looking around the paddock, I mean, things are relatively quiet Slyvisio and Ace Wolf were side by side there. Slyvisio just having slammed into the barriers. We did hear on the audio that he caught a lot of gravel and that just dragged him in. You can see here an interesting little battle. Jude and Mustard 27 will choose to use the helmet cam then of Mustard 27 as he heads down the Conrad Straight here. A rarely used camera angle, but one that we like to use when the cars get up close and personal. You also just get to see the G-forces at play here going into this incredibly high-speed section of the track. Very heavy on the brakes here. Plenty of hair-raising moments throughout TRTN's history at Bathurst. So heading down to the line. For Mustard 27. Currently 10th fastest in this session. Just around 7.5 minutes left to go. Starting a brand new lap. Last one was a dud, a 2:04.655. See there, something going on in the pit lane. This is Shamian and Cthulhu. Cthulhu, by the way, running a special livery for this event with a Joker still left to play in the championship, stopping at the end of the pit lane to let Shamian get him by. For Cthulhu, supposedly this pink and yellow livery is based off a local energy drink, a big favourite choice of his. Now as we see exiting the pit lane with Evil in tow. Of course, two cars in the Novasport family, MBU and Novasport. And yes, a bit of a parade lap out of the Ferrari and the McLaren. In every walk of life, in every championship I've seen, these two cars have always been at the forefront of it, and it really does stand a testament to the work Ferrari and McLaren have put into the 296 and the 720S. They are absolute pinnacle vehicles in ACC. Definitely going to go down in the history books as some of the greatest GT racers of all time. And it really does seem on brand then for McLaren and Ferrari, two very historic firms to be cooking this late into their run. And now we see in the hands of Cthulhu and Evil what these cars are potentially capable of. Now the main issue these two cars do have, where they are normally absolute golden form throughout, stability is a concern, especially into that over the hill and downhill section through Skyline. Can the back end potentially snap away? And in a mid-engine car, if any of you have had the pleasure or perhaps unpleasure of driving the Toyota MR2, you'll know when a mid-engine car snaps, it snaps very, very hard. So Evil getting ahead of Cthulhu there for their flying lap. I think I can sense what they're doing. I can see it. I can feel it. They're cooking. They're waiting for that slipstream, I believe. Either that or no. You can see he's slowing down a little bit too much for what I thought it was going to be. I think Cthulhu is just giving him the space now. A bit too early on for these kind of tactics, but we have seen it before. It's not impossible to see teammates working together like this, and especially this late on in the championship. We've seen more often in Grand Prix racing, when we were back known as TRR, where we see drivers hop out on track specifically to give tow to their teammates in the final runnings of qualifying. But these are the final runnings of free practice. We're not onto the meat and potatoes of this sandwich just yet. But already starting off his flying lap, looking at around a tenth of an improvement. That's quickly fallen by the wayside there. It's high downforce for Cthulhu, and it seems to be the same problem prevailing for many of the drivers across the paddock, is getting lulled into using that high downforce setup, and it causes just utter bedlam for them down the straights. You see, it was a big slide out of turn 2. Almost did a grind there, like he was on a skateboard going through the sort of exiting half of turn 2. See, heading around, he's gone wide over the apex, followed that around, but you can see he has done like almost an FS 50-50 on the back end of his car there. Let's put him at a disadvantage here, 1.1 seconds off pace as he heads down to Skyline Hill, but we'll see exactly what I'm talking about here, as it is an area of the track where the car goes incredibly light, and for mid-engine cars like the Ferrari, they can get very snappy when not tuned properly. But for Cthulhu, he's been able to sort of keep the reins tight here on the Ferrari, and he's still keeping it going. Of course, he'll have to salvage this lap with 1.1 seconds down the line as he heads down the Conrod Straight. We'll see exactly what the problem is here. So it's 178 miles an hour. That's the fastest top end we've observed so far. Cars would be looking, if they were running totally low downforce, you'd be looking at 180, and that would be earth-shattering speeds here at this track. You can see 178 is the one to beat. You can see it just tapers off at 176. He barely gets to 178 by the time he gets to the chase there, where some cars around him are getting that done as they're rounding turn 20. So we'll stay on board with Cthulhu in this special livery car on the grounds that he can get a good time in on this lap. So starting with a fresh mindset there, having thrown that lap before him, a 204.404. Through Hell Corner we go. And as we saw with that onboard with Slyvisio, it is a very daring corner to start things off at. It is a banked corner at turn 1, named after the fact that there used to be a tree stump on the inside of turn 1, back when it was a motorcycle racing track in its olden days. If you were to hit that on the inside, well, you know where your destination is, hence Hell Corner. You see, learning from his mistakes in the last run there, getting a little bit more cautious around turn 2. Right now, though, sits at nearly a second off. So whatever he's experimenting with at this leg, it's not getting him the times that he wants. I think this may be intentional then. So I think he might be testing higher racing load, more fuel in the tank, getting himself ready for when the lights go green and we go racing for the last time here in Season 16. Right now in a comfortable P10, that'll be all from him for now. So we saw briefly Anzac Comet, but he's only set a time good enough for 25th of 28 positions. So a very stacked crowd, I must say, coming into this final round of the championship. And that's going to weigh heavy on some of the drivers that are setting times right now in and around P10 to P20. You're in the danger zone. And this is one such driver, Dr. Krieger, towards the back of that sort of danger zone threshold from P10 to P20. This is where we see the bulk of our issues come from on lap 1. This is where drivers get ambitious. They want to get moves up. They want to get up into the top 15. They want to get up into the top 10. They want to put themselves in the best possible position for the remaining hour of racing. So you see here, flat 6 singing down the Conrod Straight there, courtesy of Dr. Krieger in 3-2-1. That was a big snap there. The Porsche rearing its ugly head when it comes to those sudden shifts in characteristics for handling. We'll see that through the chase there. It's very easy for the Porsche to get overdriven. We've seen it throughout our coverage of GT racing over the last year and a half, that everyone who's took to the challenge of the Porsche there, you can see, just took a very tiny tiptoe over the inside curb. And that's been enough to upset the Porsche into trying to buck him off like an angry horse. Back into the pit lane then for Dr. Krieger at the end of not qualifying, sorry, I got too ahead of myself there. At the end of free practice here. So Cam heading to the line on a potential improvement in the 67. He's got quite significant damage over the sides there. Crosses the line with a 205.5. See here, next to the line, his twin, as it were, Osmad, taking a leap to the pit lane. Got a lot of traffic in the mountain section here. We'll stay on board with Evil, one of 2 drivers invested in that fight for the Pro-Am Championship. The heir apparent of the Pro seat for Season 17. We'll see what Evil can do then on this last lap of practice before we get to see them really chuck the reins off and let loose here. He's got a 203.2 to beat, and after a bit of an upset at turn 18, he's got himself down 0.2 of a second as he heads down the Conrod. What can he do then in that McLaren? He's going to throw the towel in then on this run at the end of free practice. We'll see him again in qualifying. Try and catch on board then with Ololit's Chris as he crosses the line in the 77 at 202.017. Puts him 6th fastest in the Aston Martin. So Aston Martin's starting to climb the reins here. They're starting to get up the order. And I think we could definitely see drivers like Chris and Ricky, 2 of the most prolific drivers of Aston Martin this season, make that climb up towards the front row. So kicking us off, we already got our Pro drivers lining up as our AM drivers make their way out for the first section of qualifying. Now I believe it's the first 8 minutes dedicated to AM, next dedicated to Pro-Am and Pro. As you can see already, everyone lining up from the Pro category as we now let loose the AM drivers for the start of qualifying. But to take a look at our schedule as well for today, of course, it's a 17-minute qualifying session. That minute buffer is to allow for the transition between Pro-Am and Pro and Am, the two classifications for the first and second half of qualifying. And of course, a 60-minute race ahead of us at 2 PM local time, peak conditions here in New South Wales. So we'll stay on board then with Snippy, who's going to be provisionally our baseline driver. He's on his out lap at the moment and getting ready for the first of our qualifying laps here, and the ultimate act of the championship. So to set the stakes here for that AM championship, it's 11 points to advantage of Snippy at the moment. He's one of the two drivers in that winning formula. We've got a funny one here. One of our subscribers tuning in, FarouGem92, saying, when are you going to play Ode to Joy? This is for, you know what, you've caught me at an interesting time here. Just before we get onto this lap then by Snippy, we'll stay on board with them. I want to address some things that's gone on with TRTN over the last 72 hours. So, over the last 72 hours, we have received not necessarily a DMCA, but threats of a DMCA, as we've had multiple instances where audio has been expunged from our VODs and from past broadcasts of TRTN. As it turns out, a concerned third party, and we can't name names because Twitch refuses to give them to us, is flagging up our use of national anthems and the Symphony No. 9 Ode to Joy by Ludwig van Beethoven, which we use at the end of the race when a driver wins or wins the championship. We use 2 excerpts of that as potentially copyrighted content. Now, I want to throw this up in the air. Ludwig van Beethoven has been dead for nearly 200 years, and Ode to Joy is based off a poem called An die Freude, which was written in 1784. You tell me where that lands as copyrighted content, considering that copyright for music was mostly introduced in 1929. Okay, so we're still missing the mark by just nearly 2 centuries. And as for national anthems, pretty much every national anthem for every nation that we've used, to name off the top of my head, we've used national anthems for the Netherlands, the UK, the United States, Australia, Italy, Belgium, Germany, are all in the public domain. So these are very loopy rules that Twitch has suddenly introduced. We're doing what we can, of course. We're doing what we can. And it sucks that we've had to remove those, and I feel like that's something I should mention. There will not be an airing of a national anthem, nor will there be anything regarding the use of Ode to Joy at the end of this race. It does suck, and it was one of our characteristics, one of our little iconic bits of our broadcasting process, and I think it really did enhance the experience for a lot of people. I think there are a lot of people that were excited to hear their nation's national anthem when a driver from their country won the race. You know, such examples, NLRL, ecstatic whenever they hear the Dutch national anthem. So it's unfortunate that we've had to do that. It started off with just a few national anthems. Now it's been a case where Twitch has contacted us saying, look, you guys are getting this a lot. We are trying to stop you from getting a DMCA. You need to get rid of it. So, yeah, from here on out, it's going to be that. And it does suck. It really does suck. But what can you do? At the end of the day, we don't want to lose what we have here. We don't want to get taken down by Twitch because we've been doing something wrong. Well, not that we realised that realistically this shouldn't even be an issue, but it's not our choice to decide. So, at the end of our first flying lap then by Snippy, after that little tirade about copyright law, we get to see the first of our laps today, a 203.972. We'll see where that stacks up, as next towards the line is the 277 of Mustard 27, heading to the line now to set the first fastest time, a 203.3. We'll see where that looks on the leaderboards. Ido sets the new fastest time, a 202.8. Next towards the line then is Kiss Army CV8, a 202.7. So constantly in the new fastest time position. We've seen Cam cross the line there for the 5th fastest time, 1.6 seconds off that of Kiss Army CV8. Who currently still holds on to that fastest time for the time being. A new time set in there by Jude in the number 12 BMW, 4.5 seconds off the pace so far. Bit of a dud lap out of him. I'm sure he'll be looking to recuperate on his losses there. Wolfdan makes the 6th fastest time there as one of 2 in that fight in the AM Championship. Of course, that is 11 points dividing them, and currently only 2 positions dividing Snippy from Wolfdan, but 1.2 seconds could quickly become a very large gap with a lot of drivers in between it. Between these two. Bantusk sets the 7th fastest time in that green and grey Mercedes. The 555, 3.3 seconds off pace for the time being from our fastest time. Speaking of, Kisami CV8 still on another flying lap there. A little brush with the wall of death before he heads down Skyline Hill. So we'll get back on board then with Snippy, as he's the next driver to get down to the line. Currently on this lap, he's bouncing between around 2 and 3 attempts lost here before he gets to the final set of corners here at the Chase. And then down at Murray's Corner, he's really trying to move it now to get an improvement on his time. Currently 4th, and that gap getting ever closer between himself and championship rival Wolfdan. So for Snippy, down towards the line. Not an improvement on this lap in particular, so we'll catch with Mustard here. If we can just catch him at the end of his lap from 3rd. Crosses the line with a 203.205. Not enough for a position change for the time being. Now we get to see some potential shifts in position here on our AM timing chart. The only driver yet to have set a time then, the 992 of Ace Wolf. And Anzac Comet not taking a lap, nor is the 444 of Luke. We'll check here then with Wolfdan, one of the 2 budding drivers in the AM Championship, next in line to make that move up to Pro-Am, and then furthermore next in line for that potential run of the Pro Championship in a few seasons' time. Wolfdan then next across the line from 6th position, moves up to 5th, relegating Cam down to 6th. So the battle of the Mustangs here in the top 5. Second fastest time overall at the moment to a Mustang in the AM category by only a single 1/10 of a second and to the dot. Crossing the line just gone there was Bantusk, not to an improvement sadly. Still in 7th position in the AM category. Nine and a half minutes left to go in qualifying, so we're rapidly approaching the end of our AM slot here before we get onto the Pro-Am and Pro categories. The absolute maelstrom that is that second half of qualifying. So next on board with the 277 of Mustard 27 as he heads down to the line from the Chase. Next to get across the line and set more of those times. And you can see on the map on our bottom right there already that huge line of blue signifying the release of the Pro and Pro-Am cars. So for Mustard 27, this is the end of the line here for his run in qualifying. Heading to the line from 3rd position, crosses the line and moves up to 2nd in Pro. Not in Pro, in AM. By 5 thousandths of a second. Ido crosses the line for the fastest time in AM, and that gets usurped by Kisami CV8, who takes the AM category pole position, 202.4 there in the Ferrari number 7. Cam crosses the line from 6th position to stay in 6th position. Bantusk is now running to the line here. Will it be into the pits or will it be for one final time here in the AM category before we cut across to our view of the front row of Pro and Pro-Am? It's the end of the line there for Bantusk off at the Chase. So we'll move across then to the driver leading our new line of cars. If we would go out on track here, it's the number 211. If we can locate them. Here they are, Slyvisio and Toothless, very close to one another here, but leading the charge down the Conrad Straight. 2 Ferraris in all, with the McLarens charging behind them of Yaldara and 03 Hudson and Evil. So Sly, absolutely no stranger to a solid time here in Bathurst. Of course, he did miss out on the championship back in season 15 at this very track where things did get quite pear-shaped for the Ferrari. Perhaps he has now learned his lessons and has come back to this even stronger than before. With Valet out of the mix and not competing in this round, having already wrapped up the championship, it could leave him with a high note to finish on in this championship if he can set a very solid time. And we'll see right now if he's capable of such. Starting off a flying lap here in the Pro category. We had the pleasure of viewing on board with him for our track rundown. Now we get to see how he does it live as he heads to the mountain straight. So down through Griffin's Bend we go. You see, he's left the ride height a little bit higher than that of drivers like, say, Cthulhu. He's not had the trouble of 50-50 grinding over the curbs there. And this is something you do have to weigh up. Now, the lower you put your car, the more that downforce you're going to be achieving in those more demanding corners, but at the same time, the more unstable you've made it. So I think he's hit that Goldilocks zone at the moment. You can see there is just enough of a gap underneath the car to ride most of the curbs here in the middle sector. As we head to Skyline Hill, it's already looking very strong for Slyvisio. Got very good control of the vehicle thus far. He's ironed out a lot of the creases in free practice. Will he see that proper time come to fruition this time round? We've only got 5 minutes left to go. So a very quick and claustrophobic closer to our qualifying sessions. There's plenty of drivers out in the mix at the moment. We'll see very quickly where our Pro and Pro-Ams line up. Now, if we were to take practice as any example, we could very well see the Pro-Ams make some challenging moves up into that front row for the end of qualifying. 5 minutes left to go then as we head down to the chase for our first of our laps in the Pro-Am and Pro category here in the second half of qualifying. It's Slyvisio in the 211, and he'll quickly have that time compared to the number 98 of Toothless, and we'll go out to our timing charts here to see exactly where things rank up, as we just won't be able to cut across to each car in time without it. So Slyvisio to the line then with the 211, sets a 201.6. Where does Toothless place? Put second fastest by 0.3 of a second. Yaldara makes third fastest there. Where does 03 Hudson place as he crosses the line? Puts himself in 8th, Evil in 7th. So Evil to a massive disadvantage to Toothless at the moment, who has already started off qualifying with a bang. Osmad puts 6th fastest in the 351 Mustang. We stay on board with Slyvisio round turn 2. Keeping you updated here. Concrete Ivy puts the 4th fastest time in the number 44 Ford Mustang. Check here. Furthest up the order for the Blue Ovals. And oh lol, it's crisscrossing the line for Aston Martin there, putting it on the 2nd position so far on the front row to challenge Slyvisio for this. Now we must consider he won last season here at Bathurst in the exact same Aston Martin on screen. And there's Ricky behind him, who's placed the 11th fastest time, 1.1 seconds off the beat for the time being. Of course, plenty still in the tank for these drivers to recuperate on some of those losses there. But already an interesting look at that top 5. 4 pro drivers and a Pro-Am. Makes things especially interesting. Further down the line, Globdrip puts 14th there. Dr. Krieger 19th. Adept Loser 22nd. So already things getting a little bit spicy here in qualifying. Only 3.5 minutes left to go here before the end of quali, and already things getting interesting. Slyvisio next towards the line here from the chase. See if we can actually get back on board with him, get some of the telemetry from that Ferrari. It is looking to be an improvement, but how far can he push that Ferrari as we get down to Murray's corner here at turn 23. Toothless right behind him there by 3.2 seconds on track. Heading to the line then. Slyvisio across the line for a 201.475. What can Toothless do as he gets to the line though? Puts himself up to second. Yaldara's right behind him. Is going to move up to second himself by 0.05 of a second. I believe 03 Hudson is next to make his way across the line if we were to remember the starting order of things in quali. Oh lol, it's Chris making his way down towards the line as we speak. He's going down the Conrod straight. Concrete Ivy next to the line then in the Mustang. Furthest up the order for Ford. Puts himself third there by 0.06 of a second. Already, look at this. 3 drivers separated by less than 1/10 of a second. That is extraordinary stuff. So next across the line, oh lol, it's Chris in the Aston Martin. Now we've seen very promising times out of the Aston this time round. Couldn't get one in, still in P5. A very respectable position on the track as of current. TK Zerving starting a new lap there. Only 0.05 away from the car in front of him, that being oh lol, it's Chris in the Aston Martin. Woolley next towards the line here in the number 40. Heading across the line from 10th position up to a respectable 7th there, ahead of both Kiss Army CV8 and Ido. The 295 is next to the line. That's Cthulhu in his special liveried 296 Ferrari. From 13th position, crosses the line. Sadly, not to move up a single position more. Number 27 of Ricky is heading down towards the chase here. On the map, it appeared that he was invalidated. He's got Slyvisio right behind him. We'll see whether or not the rumours of his invalidation are true, because he is holding left here and is actually, yes, jumping to the pit lane. So we'll catch back on board then with our current pole sitter. Is he looking to extend this outside of a tenth of a second? He's got a very competitive grid lining up behind him so far. Crossing the line for Slyvisio, puts it up to 0.2 of a second. Toothless right behind him, then crossing the line. Will he find more time on this lap? No, he will not. To see here, Evil's next up to the line. One of the two drivers involved in the Pro-Am Championship moves up to 13th position. The I don't know, that's not the 295, that is the... I think he's already set the time now, it's too late. It's the 351, not the 2, it was the 351. Osmad up to 10th position. Next to the line, TK Zervinks on his final race with the Nova Sport family here in season 16. What can he put in as we get now down to the final moments of qualifying? He'll have just enough time for one more lap in the 46 before the end of quali. Crossing the line then from 6th position, staying 6th. Try and see then. The 321 crosses the line. And that was of, I believe that's Dr. Krieger, crossing the line for P20. The number 40 next up to the line. That being Wooly, crossing for 7th. The 295 next into the frame here. That's Cthulhu on his last qualifying run of the season. From P14 at the moment. Can he make a mark up into the top 10 by the end of this lap? He's got quite some way to make it. Gets to the line and is up into P8. So very nicely done there by the 295. Next into the fray then, our current pole sitter. Can he defend it for one last run here in qualifying? Slyvisio has been on an absolutely incredible form through quali so far. Is he going to come by the wayside now? Heading down to the final corner. Can he extend the gap even further from 0.2 of a second, where it was previously under a single tenth? Slyvisio gets to the line, makes a 201.3 into a 201.2. Yaldara next in line to try and challenge it, getting it to the line. Needs 0.2 of a second, can't find it this time round. Oh lol, it's Chris and TK Zervinks are the last two drivers out on track here. Can they make a mark here? The Aston Martin has been incredibly strong through qualifying, and Chris has really tuned into things nicely over the course of this qualifying session. If we were to take a look at our previous winners, Chris accounts for 2 wins historically in the last 7 seasons, winning in both the Aston Martin on screen and in a Lamborghini 2 seasons beforehand. Can he make pole position then for season 16? Getting down to the line. Will it be just enough for the number 77? Chris crosses the line from 5th position and moves up to 4th. TK Zervinks right behind him goes from 6th up to pole position there. A final flourish by TK Zervinks puts him with a 201.2, 0.08 of a second faster than his teammate Slyvisio. What a final flourish from the 46, a pro driver, outdone by a Pro-Am in the final leg of the championship. That is absolutely brilliant stuff to see the end of qualifying here, the final qualifying of the season. And with no national anthem to play, let's get straight into it then. With 2 minutes before our formation lap, TK Zervinks starts from pole position in the Who's Who game of the special liveries with both himself and Slyvisio. I believe the marketing behind this was Who's Who, and when we switch, you won't tell which is which. And Slyvisio starts in 2nd position. And on that front row, I think dumbfounded by that sudden shift by TK Zervinks, really had his Weetabix towards the end of that row. end of that race, end of that qualifying session. They make the front row then. Yaldara right behind them. So that's a Novasport family 1, 2, 3 coming into the final lineup of the season. Concrete Ivy's in 4th. Oh lol, it's Chris in the top 5 for Aston Martin. Toothless in 6th position. Wooly in 7th. Cthulhu in 8th. Kisami CV8 in 9th position with Ido 10th. Osmad in 11th. Mustard 27 in 12th. Ricky in 13th. Evil in 14th. Globtrip in 15th position with Snippy in 16th. Right behind him is his championship rival Wolfdan in 17th position. Cam in 18th with Dr. Krieger in 19th, Bantusk in 20th, Jude in 21st, Adept Loser in 22nd, Saxy in 23rd, Ace Wolf in 24th, Shamian in 25th, Anzac Comet in 26th, Luke in 27th, and O3 Hudson provisionally last. But what an end to qualifying that was. I'm sure that came as a surprise to quite a few people there. He really had quite a spring in his step towards the end of quali to put it in a time like that. I don't think anyone could have seen that one coming. It was a very strong session for Novasport nonetheless, and for TK Zervings, he wants to round this off with a bang here, and what a way to make his presence known by setting pole position from the Pro-Am category. Taking us away then, our pole sitter TK Zervings in the 46 for Novus Ludo, one of 3 elements of the Novasport family. Taking us away then, nearly put himself in 2nd gear as he pulled away. That's the 46. A Ferrari 1-2 and a Novasport family 1-2-3. It has definitely been their season for showcase here on TRTM. We saw incredibly strong qualifyings out of this team and out of this family of teams all the way back in the round 1 in Snetterton. Now as we get to the final act here before Christmas, this is a true sight to behold for the team to see their cars 1, 2 and 3. But look further behind. Let's not take away from their successes, but let's look quickly at those drivers in the top 5 positions as things are getting very interesting here. 2 of the heavyweight front-engined cars backing up the top 5. Aston Martin versus Ford. Chris versus Concrete Ivy. 2 previous race winners here at Bathurst set to tangle down into turn 1 in 2 of the biggest cars on the field. The absolute Goliaths that are the Ford Mustang and the Aston Martin V8 Vantage. Toothless, you can see there up in 6th position. He's looking to get this run and done for the championship in Pro-Am. He wants that seat for season 17. He was going to do just about anything to get it. Looking at the Pro-Am championships yet again, you see right now it's 5 points separating them, and Toothless is going to try and get every single point he can to make that a definite by the end of this race coming. Down in the AM standings, of course, Snippy and Wolfdown are right next to each other, but 11 points divide them. So it's gonna need quite a decent set of moves from both parties to get the advantage necessary coming out of this round and to the end of the championship. And of course, in the overall standings, it's already a wrapped up affair for Valet. But oh lol, it's Chris, Yaldara and Ricky all still have places to play for here in the final round for those podium positions. For TK Zervinks at the moment in Pro-Am, he's somewhere out of the way here, down in 9th position, having a few blunders here and there, but he's going to wrap things off on a very high note. Let's see what he can do then. So we'll stay with them for the time being. We'll be back in just a moment's time as we head down through the S's. 28 drivers in all here for the final round of the championship. We're among record highs here in season 16 for attendance. All hands on deck for the final act. And for the final race here on AXRL in 2024, I believe, picking up on season 17 in 2025. So then following with our pole sitter as the grid starts to line up two abreast behind him. He's got Slyvisio to his right hand side, and he's got Yaldara, Concrete Ivy and Ololits Chris in that top 5. A very competitive field here for the final round of season 16 as we head down to turn 23. We are but moments away from the final green and racing here in AXRL season 16, and what a sight to behold. 28 drivers in all, a glorious sight for any fan of GT endurance racing out there. No matter where you are in the world, this is going to be one to watch. Heading down to the line then for the final time in season 16. And we, without further ado, are green and racing here in Bathurst for the final time this season. And already a very strong start by Yaldara and by TK Zermix heading down into turn 1. A bit of a poor start by Slyvisio, but he's now been able to regain second position. You can see an absolute maelstrom of moves down into turn 1. All through it relatively cleanly though. So now TK Zermix leading from Slyvisio, Yaldara, Concrete Ivy and Ololits Chris in that top 5. Very close to one another as we head down into turn 2. Concrete Ivy was eyeing up a move there. Going down into turn 2 on Yaldara. Looking further down the line, though, we can already see cars get side by side. We check on board here. This is the 9th position car of Ido, who's got a very clear line of sight of Cthulhu, Wooly and Toothless. 3 Ferraris in absolute en passant here for the early battles of P6 and beyond. Out of the cuttings we go. This is normally where we see the bulk of our problems start to rear their ugly heads here, and we can see things getting a little bit claustrophobic. This is Evil's perspective here in the number 30. He's got Globdrip and Ricky right in front of him there, all through without issue. That is a very rare sight to behold. Snippy right behind him there in the AM category car, and one of the budding championship rivals. So two worlds collide here. One of the budding championship rivals of Pro-Am meets the championship rivals of AM. Looking down the line here, 03 Hudson's really caught up in the thick at the back of these positions here from 23rd. It's cars on top of cars here. No room for error whatsoever. So taking us down the line, TK Zervings from Slyvisio, Yaldara, Concrete Ivy, Ololits Chris and Toothless. Then behind him, Wooly, Ido, Osmad and Cthulhu round out that top 10. But things are getting already very close between our top 2. Slyvisio is already looking to make a move on his teammate here. Of course, neither of them have anything to lose at this leg of the championship. So as far as they're concerned, it could get elbows out at any point here. The Novasport trio could be doing battle with each other long before anyone else gets involved. You can see further down the line there, things starting to spread out on our opening lap. Getting down into turn 1 for the second time going then, starting off the provisional lap 1 instead of lap 0. Down the line there, Osmad and Cthulhu and Kisami CV8, Ricky further behind them there. You can see starting to filter into a nice little line of cars here. Slyvisio, however, is getting very, very close to his teammate now in the battle for first position. Slyvisio moves up into first before we even have the chance to record it as the battle of first. And off he goes, Slyvisio up into first, overtaking TK Zervings from pole position and having that run and done within 3 minutes of racing. Things already getting a little bit pear-shaped, so it seems, for TK Zervings, as now he's backing up onto his teammate Yaldara. And further behind him, Concrete Ivy and Ricky are eager to get him by. Yaldara taking a scrape at the walls there. That's going to allow Concrete Ivy to get all over his back end. Let's see if we can catch what's going on there. As we can see, a car pulled over to the side of the road as well. That's 03 Hudson at the side of the road there. Unfortunate for him at this early on. Same for Wolfdan and Shamian, who are already in the pit lanes. That has got to be devastating for Wolfdan. And that could very well be his championship run over before it's even started here. Concrete Ivy with minor damage over the nose of the number 44 Mustang, heading down into turn 18 at Forest's Elbow, is going to try his luck on Wooly, so it seems, as Yaldara's dropped somewhere out of the mix here. I'm not sure what's actually happened there for Yaldara. It's actually up to second now. TK Zervings backs behind Toothless. So a big shift of positions in the meantime there. We can see Wooly and TK Zervings side by side. These menus are absolutely terrible. So we see here with TK Zervings now having dropped from first down to fifth. He's got damage over the nose. Concrete Ivy's looking to make that first to sixth now. The Mustang already harassing him for position. Zervings is into the pits then. That's disaster for our pole sitter. Toothless now up into third. Willie's now up into fourth. Ololitz, Chris and Concrete Ivy closest on track at the moment for our next leading battle. We do have white flags after the end of the chase there. Something is amiss further down the line. Right now, though, watching with Ololitz Chris in his battle with Concrete Ivy. Side by side, a drag race then down to turn 2. Aston versus Ford. V8 versus V8. And it looks to be going to the benefit of the Aston Martin. And Ololitz Chris gets the move in then down at turn 2. Concrete Ivy now has Osmad backing up to a Mustang Civil War. Out of those top 5 positions, Ololitz Chris makes his way up to P5 then. Next in his iron sights will be Wooly, Toothless and Yaldara before he has a look at the front row. But for Sly Visio, he is getting away and getting away fast, unburdened by the mistakes of season 15 gone by. He is on absolutely flying form for the start of this race. For Toothless as well, he's held on very nicely here from the Pro-Am category to put himself in a very respectable P3. TK Zervings, though, that is his run of a potential race win today, well and truly crushed. And that has got to hurt. So looking around the field, Cthulhu having a little brush in with the wall there after turn 18. Doesn't look like anything structural has gone on with that Ferrari, but it has shook his confidence a little bit in the run up against Kiss Army CV8. Furthest up the order for the AM drivers so far in this race after only 6 minutes covered. We'll see what he's capable of here down into the chase. Kiss Army CV8 actually moving on to the early defensive there against Cthulhu. This is for the battle of P8 already here on lap 2. And Cthulhu's dived for the inside. He's really gone for it. He's not waiting around for any hesitation here. But Kisami CV8 has the better of the 2 lines. Is he going to be able to surf that into a move down into turn 1? Or is Cthulhu going to go to the early defensive? Kisami CV8 looks to be striking it back at turn 1. Not an easy opportunity, if any. But Cthulhu holds him off from around the outside. Ido gets a big snap of oversteer. That's going to invite Ricky behind him to come in and have a go. Did have a little bit of a snap of what looked like a disconnect early there, but fortunately I don't think that's going to happen again. See, Ricky and Ido still doing battle here. We'll catch on board with Ido's perspective from P9 here. This is for the battle of 9th position. You can see right behind him is that bright blue Aston Martin of Ricky in the number 27. But Ido, he's done a very respectable job down in the AM category so far in that Mustang, with the Joker still left to play. There is a lot riding on the line here for Ido. He's already made a very sizable impression after a late entry to Season 16. If this is the performance we can come to expect, you're looking at a potential future AM Championship fighter here for Season 17 and beyond. So down into Skyline we go. Cthulhu, Kisami CV8, Ido and Ricky there on the screen, 7th through to 10th. 2 Ferraris, a Ford and an Aston here. Closest together is that Ford and Aston. You can see behind them that's Evil as well. Slowly making their way up the lines here. Ido takes another bash with the barriers. That's going to allow Ricky to get side by side and ahead. Off he goes down the Conrod straight, but now we'll see where straight line speed is to the benefit of one over the other. He's in the slipstream there of the Aston Martin. We know the Fords are capable of nearly 180 miles an hour down the Conrod straight. Is the Aston capable of even more? You can see it is absolutely flying. This is some Le Mans pace out of Ricky. He's really getting a move on here early on in the race after nearly 10 minutes here. Ido's lost out that position to Ricky after a very small mistake on the exit of Forest's Elbow. Ricky now setting his sights on Kisami CV8 and Cthulhu. That Aston Martin is really getting a wriggle on now. This is Snippy here, one of 2 fighters in the battle for the AM Championship, down in 12th position right now. But Wolfdan already having took an early dive to the pits. Snippy is in a very comfortable position where he's at currently. Yaldara starting to fall away from his teammates, so we'll actually check the battle in third position. See here, this is Ricky. We'll actually stay on board with this. It's 4 cars in all. Ido, Ricky, Cthulhu, and Kisami CB8, and there's contact ahead of the Aston Martin and the Ford here. It's forcing them to do a double staggered formation, like we're back on the formation lap here, going into the cuttings. They're very nervous section of the track to be doing so. Ido gets back out in front. Evil's going to be surfing that inside line, very nearly clips the back of the Aston Martin there. That got razor thin off in the background there. That was the bright pink Mustang of Cam. To stay on board with Ricky, who's got the clearest view of things going on in front of him, having dropped back down to P10, but with the iron sights firmly set on the Mustang and the 2 Ferraris ahead of him. We saw already how quickly he can get a move on. I have no doubts he'll be able to do exactly the same thing today. After nearly 50 minutes left to go, after 10 minutes covered, I should say, of the race. Ooh, and things are already getting very hairy there. Minor contacts and having to slam the brakes on, get the anchors down on these heavyweights as we come out of turn 18. The number 97's in trouble in the pit lanes. Yellow flags are out for that pit straight for the time being. So down the Conrod we go. That Mustang's going to be all over Kisami CB8's Ferrari. And Ricky's just going to be able to watch on as these two start to trip over one another as we head down into the chase. This is a very tricky section of the track to be going too wide in. You can see he's had to back off there. That's going to allow Ricky to almost size him up for a move on the inside. He's backed out of it there out of better judgment, knowing these guys are going to run over their line. That's going to allow him to get ever closer as we head down into Murray's. This is all very tactical stuff from the Aston Martin. The battle of P9. We should shift our attention to the battle of P3 fairly soon, but right now things are getting very, very sticky here at the back of the top 10. Ido always seems to have a little bit of trouble on the exit of turn 1, not this time round. The Aston Martin's not going anywhere, still firmly in the slipstream. You can see that is quickly becoming a multi-car race here for that single position as more drivers start to pile up behind. Evil is closing in, as too is Snippy, Cam and Bantusk. But for Ricky, he is holding firm here and waiting for his opportunity. Now we saw things get elbows out through the cuttings here at turns 3 and 4. Ricky's going to try and use the slightly wider line to conserve some of that momentum, but it's not done him any favours. He's let the Ferrari and the Ford get away from him there. Up through Quarry, now into Frog Hollow. See a little bounce on the curbs there, and he had to lift off the throttle, and he lifts off the throttle here out of McPhillamy just to get some of that rotation in, then he's firmly back on the accelerator for Skyline Hill. This is getting very interesting here. We'll quickly cut away from them. We'll catch up with them in a moment's time. We want to try and get a look at what is going on in the state of affairs up in the top 5. Yaldara and Toothless separated by 2 seconds. And Wooly and Ololit's Chris closest to each other here in the top 5 for the time being. 0.6 of a second between the number 40 and the number 77. Ferrari versus Aston Martin up in the top 5. No current indication as to when a move could be, but he is getting closer and closer into that striking distance necessary on a track like this. Slyvisio still leading this race by 1.1 seconds to Yaldara after that surprise move on TK Zervinks. It seemed that Zervinks crumbled under the pressures there of starting from pole, especially on a track like this. It's arguably the best seat in the house. The things have just gone pear-shaped for him. This is Toothless now, furthest up the order for the Pro-Am drivers, and flying away now with his run of that Pro-Am championship. It was 5 points that he had ahead of Evil. It's going to be plenty more if he can stay in this position by the end of this round. So let's go back on board the absolute war on all fronts that is the back of that top 10. Kisami CV8 still has Ricky and Ido to play with here. Ahead of him is Cthulhu and escaping fast. We'll stay on board with the defending driver for this time round. Kisami CV8 in the number 7 Ferrari. Bear in mind, this driver also has a joker left to play. So plenty of points up for grabs here, even at the back of the top 10, with plenty of these drivers using their jokers on the last event of the championship. Heading out of turn 6 we go then. Bruce Solman into Frog's Hollow, and McPhillamy parks up next. Down into the skyline. Ricky is getting ever closer. I think that pressure is starting to weigh heavy on Kisami CB8 here. He's just holding his line. All he's got to do is keep his head down, really, in this section of the track, not worry about the cars behind him. They've got the harder job of trying to get him by in that dirty air. Now as we head down the Conrod straight, out of turn 19 we go. See, the Ferrari is starting to pull and pull fast here, but the Aston Martin, so long as it stays that close, is just going to be clawing that time down over the course of this race. 45 minutes left to go, already 15 minutes covered. We'll get a look at our overall standings for this race after 15 minutes in a few moments' time. Ricky could be eyeing up that position very, very soon here. You can see the body language of that Aston Martin signifying that he is now starting to size up Kisami for a move here. He's looking for where he compromises his line. He's looking for where he could be vulnerable on his run around Bathurst, and he'll make that lunge when he least expects it. So down into turn 1 we go with 45 minutes left to go, 15 minutes covered. Slyvisio now leads this race. Yaldara second, Toothless in third with the fastest time so far. Wooly in 4th, Ololitz Chris in 5th, Osmad 6th, Cthulhu in 7th. The two drivers here, Kisami CV8 and Ricky, battling for 8th. We'll stay with them here, as that could very well change. Ricky's to the inside and looks to be eyeing him up for P8 there. Ricky's up into 8th, Kisami down to 9th, Ido in 10th, Evil in 11th, Snippy 12th, Cam 13th, Bantusk 14th, Krieger 15th, Adept Loser in 16th, Mustard 17th, Anzac 18th, Luke 19th, Ace Wolf in 20th, 21st for Saxy, 22nd for Wolfdan, 23rd for S. Shamey and Concrete Ivy in 24th position, 25th for TK Zervinks, 26th for Jude. So as we saw there, the battle of P8 came and gone between these two over the course of a single straight on track here. And now getting vulnerable over the exit of McPhillamy. Ido's going to be looking for a move on Kisami CV8 very, very soon. These two battling in the same category. Looking around the field here, Ace Wolf's in the pits. Heavy damage over that Porsche. .5 seconds between Osmad and Ololitz Chris. Chris has fallen down by the wayside here, was previously battling with Wooly. That's Jude cutting across the track after some trouble there. Heavy damage on that BMW. That'll be into the pit lane with the number 12. And Chris is going to follow him. So Chris has accrued some kind of damage over the course of the first 10 or so minutes of racing. That's haunted him into the first 15. Evil looking to get around the outside of Ido there, but he's been forced onto the grass. See how wide the Mustang can make itself when it needs to be. That being demonstrated effectively there by Ido, defending P10 from Evil. See, there's Snippy. One of two invested in the AM Championship fight here. We will be crowning two more champions at the end of this race. Could he be one of them? Only time will tell. 42 minutes left to go then in this race. We'll watch on board with the perspective of Snippy for just a moment's time here. We do have yellow flags. That was for the 46 car. Is that what I think it is? The number 46, if memory withstands, is TK Zervinks, who brought the yellow flags out in the, I believe it was the mountain section of the track, and now is back into the pits. That could very well be the end of the road then for TK Zervinks. Ololitz Chris, who was in a very strong stead for the start of this race, is now effectively out of the runnings here, having took a pit stop already. Now we do have a mandatory pit stop for everyone involved, so we could bounce this back, but an early pit stop and having to repair a lot of those damages is going to put him some way behind. He's really going to have to dig deep and knuckle down here for the remainder of the race. 41 minutes for him to go. Here's Slyvisio, the race leader, now leading by 3.2 seconds. He's dropped Yaldara, who's now at the mercy of the number 98 of Toothless. And speaking of, here's the perspective of the furthest driver up the order for our Pro-Am competitors. The number 98 Ferrari of Toothless, running the livery of, I believe that's AF Corsa. So chasing down Yaldara, representing Out of Their Minds. We're going to take a look yet again at our Pro-Am standings. 5 points advantage to Evil, who is not too far behind, mind you. He's around the back of the top 10. Toothless at the moment, stuck in the middle of the top 5. And desperately trying to get a move in, but he's run very deep there. At turns 3 and 4 at the cutting. You'd hear the squealing of the tyres there. It was just absolutely no grip at the front for that Ferrari. Something appears to be going wrong then for Toothless, because now, because of that clerical mistake, Yaldara's getting away and getting away fast. 1.4 seconds as we exit McPhillamy Park, now down to Skyline Hill. You can see there, he's getting uber late on the brakes now. He's really, really pushing that Ferrari to get back up into the fight here for that front row. Could he be pushing that car too far? I mean, only time will tell. We've seen plenty of times before, even in AXRL, the drivers end up pushing their machine just a little too hard. And as our interviewee said earlier, it's just as much a fight with the mountain today as it's going to be with the car. So having a look around here, things were getting rather spicy at the back of the field. As Shamian takes a trip into the wall there, Ricky's going to lap him, and that's actually going to allow Kisami CB8 to strike back here. The Aston had to slow down massively out of turn 18, so for Kisami, he could be having a look back at another move here on the Aston Martin of Ricky. They'll be side by side. To the outside he'll go at the chase. Is the Ferrari going to be able to lock him in like a 130R style move here? Yes, he is. That's rather telling. That's an Alonso-esque move, had ever I seen one. Ricky will be absolutely furious with having to have slowed down there. Very nicely held. Swung across his nose there. Very nicely done by Kisami CB8. So having a look around for our closest battles on track. Ido not too far behind this battle here. As a matter of fact, we are going to go on board with Ricky, who's now the attacking driver of this duo. 0.3 of a second and closing to Kisami CB8. For control of 6th position. Down into turn 2 we go. Obviously having lost out on that move and having lost out on that position, we double check our replay. Back down at the chase. Unfortunately now it doesn't actually show us it. That's weird. It was able to show us the first couple of seconds of that, but not much more. Swung across his nose at the chase. Ricky will not be happy with that one. Yellow flag's out for the opening straight. Another car into the pit lane, the number 12 this time. Suppose now is better time as ever as we watch with these two drivers here battling out is to bring up the statistic we brought up back at the Circuit of the Americas, and that is the compiling of all of the driver of the day votes over the course of the last 7 rounds to compile what we have called the driver of the season award here on TRTN. And having a look in the pro category, Ricky currently sits in 2nd position and may be gaining plenty more points by the end of this round, making him the pro category's driver of the season. Valet with 29 votes, Ricky with 24, Chris with 20, Sly with 19, Yaldara with 16, Concrete Ivy with 5, and Saxy with 1 in the pro category. And Pro-Am, Toothless is leading far and away with 40 votes this season. Oh, that's trouble for Ricky. Hang on just a moment. Caught some of the dirt there on the right hand side. That's forced him out of the battle of 6th for the time being. Ido will be sizing him up for 7th very soon. Ricky's going to the pits then. So we'll hold off on that award for a moment here. Ricky has made an emergency lunge to the pit lane in the number 27 Aston Martin. So we'll catch up then with the state of affairs up in the top 10. If ever there are close battles at this leg. Now, of course, towards the middle, we do tend to spread out, but here we can see a battle between Concrete Ivy and Dr. Krieger down in 17th position. Porsche versus Ford here, down into turn 18. Krieger defending, Ivy attacking. Now, realistically here, if we try and catch Ivy's perspective of things, that Mustang has got considerably more straight line speed than the Porsche ahead of it. This could be pretty easily run and done for the 44 here. You see, heading down to the chase, he'll be to the inside, actually backs out of it on Dr. Krieger. He knows the Porsche can brake much later than he can. Will he be sizing up a move into the chase? No, he does not. So we really thought he could have been run and done there by the Ford. He needed just a little longer stretch of tarmac before he had that in the bag. You can see very close down into turn 2 at the moment is the 888 and the 444. Luke and Shamian, but on 2 different stretches of the race, 14th and 22nd, one unlapping, one lapping. Looking for our next big battle. We always like to get some close battling here in Bathurst, but it looks like we're getting out into the dry period, as it were, where strategy is going to come into play here. Some drivers have already had to take their early leaps into the pits. We've seen Ololitz Chris has already made his way back into the top 20 positions after that early emergency pit stop to repair damages. Is slowly going to be making his way back into the mix of it towards the end of this race, but you can see a lot of the drivers around him have also had to take that plunge. Wolfdown, Concrete Ivy and Dr. Krieger on screen at the moment, as well as ahead of them Saxy and Ricky have all already taken their pit stops. These are all of our early pit stop runners, and the rest of the field ahead of them is completely open season here for whenever they're going to take their pit stops. We could realistically anticipate their run in the next 4 to 5 minutes, always liking to choose that middle of the race mark. Of course, we've seen late pits before. Oh my goodness, look at this here. That's Saxy sitting halfway across the road. What on earth's gone on here? The number 4 is stranded down Skyline. You can see just how close everyone is getting to him here on track. I think he's just got out of the woods there. That could have ended very nasty for Saxy there. Halfway across the road out of McPhillamy. That could have gone very, very nasty there. What does this mean, though, for Chris, Krieger, and Ivy and Wolfdown? Well, it means a free position. I don't think the timing charts have updated properly. I think they just have now. So we're back on board then. Dr. Krieger versus Concrete Ivy. Ivy's already up and ahead out of the chase. The Mustang finally opening the taps here and letting loose that billowing 5.4 litre V8. But Dr. Krieger's not going to be having no for an answer here. He's going to try his efforts to strike back here on the Mustang. You can see just how much more grunt it has down low in acceleration. Chris is now up to 19th position and will be hunting down Wolfdan. The battle of P18. Chris on the comeback drive. Wolfdan also on a comeback drive of his own here. The championship potentially squandered for him down in Am. Another tale of misfortune and bad luck for the Mustang, but now trying to break the toe of the Aston Martin right behind him. We'll stay on board then with Wolfdan in the number 8. See, in his rear view there, just almost eclipsed by the monstrous rear wing of that Ford Mustang, as Ololitz Chris in the Aston Martin as we head down into turn 2 at Griffin's Bend. Into the cuttings we go. Let's see if we can get the perspective of the attacking car here. Concrete Ivy, by the way, has now gotten ahead, and much further ahead now, of Dr. Krieger. We already saw that down in the chase, but he's now opening the taps there, getting the gap wider. Ricky in 15th, Saxy into the pit lane. Whereabouts is then a trailing view of this impending battle? Where can we find Ololitz Chris's perspective? This is the worst part about using the menus here on Assetto Corsa Competizione. The number 77 then, Ololitz Chris, heading down through Skyline Hill into the S's and the Dipper. Down into Forest Delver then. Turn 18. It's going to be a real drag race between these two. We saw that the Aston and the Mustang are not too different when it comes to that top end speed. He's actually indicating left, so forfeiting the position. Wolfdan is letting Chris by. No competition then. We saw that the Mustang indicated left and just let the Aston get him by down the Conrod Straight. Doesn't want any of that fight. Just wants to focus on his own championship. Letting Chris continue the climb back towards the top 15. So then, looking around the paddock, that gap has started to drop since we last saw it. It was around 3.8 seconds last time we observed. Now it's 2.8 between Yaldara and Sly Visio. Could we see a battle for the lead in the next couple of laps here as we get to the end of what would be provisionally our first stint of pit stops? I think we could definitely see the front row making an effort for that fairly soon. Some of the other drivers around them are already doing the same. Cam and Bantuskar in the pit lane now, serving their mandatory pit stop. Looking around the field here, things have started to simmer down in that top 10. It was all hands on deck, all action in the opening 30 minutes. Now as we get to the midway mark, it is a very quiet affair. Looking around for where our next closest battle could be. I don't think we're going to be having many here, as strategy has now come in to dig its claws into this fight. So Snippy's into the pit lane then, the potential champion to be in the AM category. Still leading by 11 points there. Wolfdan on the comeback drive, but it's got quite some way down. But bear in mind, Wolfdan's already taken that pit stop. Snippy is going to be coming in then, taking his pit stop. He does look like he has some damages to repair. Will that be a priority then by his pit crew for the number 6? That is definitely going to be one to keep an eye out for. Looking at the further standings then, you can see that a few drivers now have made that effort at the halfway mark. Osmad making his way out of the pits now, having already served his mandatory pit stop. Exits in 7th position. Snippy is going to be dropping positions by the handful here. Toothless has already taken his. He's down to P10. Anzac Comet's in the pits taking his now from P11. No news yet as to our front row. Snippy's still in the pit lane here. The longer he stays there, the more vulnerable he's going to be to being overtook by his championship rival in the AM category. But he's off of the jacks and out he goes from the pit lane. Looks like Concrete Ivy will just catch him up there on the exit of turn 1. You can see there is the bright blue number 44 Mustang peeling into frame. Behind him the dark blue Porsche 992 of Dr. Krieger in the 321. So Sly and Yaldara still out in front, yet to have took a dive to the pits just yet. Let's see what the situation is at hand for Evil, who after Toothless having took that pit lane run is now out in front of his championship rival. But for how much longer? He needs to have an absolutely lightning pit stop there. You can see things getting out of shape between Ido and Kisame CV8 there, down through the chase. 253 in serious trouble after turn 21. From the perspective of the number 30, you see heading out of the chase down towards turns 21 and 22. You can see just overpins the brakes there, gets up onto the grass. And I think off screen there spins out as well. So it's been mighty unfortunate for the Mustang. Having a look then as to who's coming into the pits now. Kisame CV8's in, as too is Adeptcluser in the Honda NSX, the solitary Honda of this championship. And for being up in the Pro-Am category, has done a respectable enough job this season in the Honda. It's had not the best of results, but to be up in the top 10 is an achievement nonetheless, especially in such an unorthodox choice of machinery. Toothless still hunting down his championship rival, Evil, who is quite some way up the field now. Something had to have gone wrong down the line there for the gap to have dropped away as it has. It still sits at just around 19 to 18 seconds, but that is a continually fluctuating value. Must consider as well, 8 seconds between Toothless is now Ido, of which, if he can catch up, is going to be held up by who is yet to serve their pit stop as well. Plenty to consider here in the second half of the race. For Wooly, he's up in a very respectable third. Yaldara makes the jump to the pit lane then. First of the two Nova Sport cars up front to be doing so. Slovisio staying out in front here. He's going to be lapping Jude in the BMW. You see exiting the pits there is Kisame CV8 in the number 7 car. He's going to be caught up by Mustard, unlapping himself from 16th. And there in the back is Wooly. Plenty to consider then. Only 5 car, the top 5 now all have yet to have took their pit stops with 26 minutes left to go, 26 and a half if you want to be exact. Having covered 34 and a half, well 33 and a half minutes of racing thus far in round 8. Evil makes the lunge to the pits. Yaldara's already in there. That makes another car in the Nova Sport family to be making their pit stop this race. For Ido, he'll be joining them in the 253 Mustang, leaving now just our front row of Wooly and Sly Visio, the last of our pit stop runners here in round 8. We may have to catch up with them in a moment's time, though, as we can see our battle starting to kick off between Dr. Krieger and Ololits Chris, who I must say has been on a brilliant comeback drive in that Aston Martin. Battle of P11. He knows that the Porsche can brake much later, but he's going to get ambitious down into the chase. He knows now at this leg of the race he can't afford to be hesitant any longer. He wants at the very least a top 10 finish after all things said and done. I think regaining the position that he started in is a bit of a tall order, but one that he's certainly of firm sound and mind that he can deliver upon. And right now, if this is any suggestion as to his ability, I think he absolutely can do that. If this is the pace he'll continue on for the next 25 minutes. Right now in his iron sights is Dr. Krieger, who he knows he can continue to pressure, and that Porsche will burn itself out very quickly under pressure. It is one of its Achilles heels, as it were. This is now for the battle of 10th position. Having passed up Ido in the pit lane, Ido drops down to 13th in the Mustang. So Sly Visio is into the pit lane whilst this is going on. The 211 is down in the pit box now. As to the situation going on up front, Wooly is also in the pit lane, so that accounts for everyone now having took their pit stops. We'll get a look at what that does further down the line in a few minutes here, but the current talk of right now is the battle of 10th position. Ololits Chris, who had early blunders in this race, has now been on an absolutely mammoth drive in that Aston Martin to come back from P23 to what looks to be a top 10 finish. Can he elevate that any further? Because it is still getting very tight up in the positions ahead of him. Snippy and Ivy are not too far away from each other at all. And he's just waiting for a mistake now out of Krieger. And that may be the opportunity he needs. Out of turn 18, that Porsche is going to be going a lot slower than it should be. Out of turn 19 we go. Now onto the Conrod straight. He knows he's got the straight line speed on the Porsche. But can he find the room to attack? These are two very wide GT3 cars here. The Aston dipping onto the grass. That could have very nearly spun him out. Very precise metrics at play here, going down into the chase. There goes Ololits Chris. The number 12 car is running into trouble and is now into the pit lane. That could be the end of the line for them. Chris very late on the brakes there, very nearly taking it into the grass. Krieger and Adept Loser are going to be fighting him tooth and nail for the position here of P10. Down into Murray's corner we go. Adept Loser to the inside of the Porsche of Dr. Krieger, moves up into 11th. Dr. Krieger forced to the outside there, takes a big toke of grass with him. But what a move in there by Ololits Chris. Timed that to perfection and things got very hairy now. What became a 2-car battle for P10 has now very quickly shifted to a 3-car battle. Next in the iron sights of Chris will be Snippy. You can see just escaping view there up into turn 2. At the moment, these three have got each other for company with 22 minutes left to go. See, though, Chris has really got the burners on now and he's moving. And he's moving fast, already having claimed a second between himself and Adept Loser in the Honda. We'll catch up with them later on. Sly Visio still out in front though, so let's get a look at what these pit stops have done for our overall field. It's under a second between our two leading cars here, Yaldara and Sly Visio, who look to be potentially battling for the race win here at the end of round 8 if things are to continue as they are. Toothless is in a very close 3rd position, not too far away from our front two at all. Wooly in 4th with Osmad up into 5th, Ricky in 6th position with Evil in 7th, Concrete Ivy up into 8th position, Snippy in 9th. Ololits Chris we saw doing battle with Adept Loser and Dr. Krieger currently sits in P10. Adept Loser in a narrow P11. Dr. Krieger now has his hands full with Ido, who's now battling for 12th. Down in 14th is Wolfdan Kisami CB8 in 15th with Mustard 27 for company. Bantusk some way down the track there in P17. Saxy in 18th. Ace Wolf 19th. Anzac Comet in the pit lane in 20th for the time being. Cam in 21st. Shamey in 22nd. And Luke 23rd. 3 laps down. So we'll observe what our state of affairs here with our race leader, Sly Visio. Actually, hold on to that thought. The number 4 car is in trouble down the mountain straight. I'm not sure what's gone on there. We weren't able to catch on board in time something horrible had happened for the number 4. I believe that was that Saxey's car, the Aston Martin. It's not the first time he's run into trouble on this track so far this session. So never mind, we'll go back on board the state of affairs of our front row then. We just see here, scrolling on by, the battle for P12. Krieger versus Ido here, Ford versus Porsche. So then, here is our front row. Slyvisio and Yaldara, 2 cars in the Novasport family. Slyvisio, of course, running a special livery for the final round of the championship. And one thing also to consider, if I'm not mistaken here, yes, also running a Joker. So this could be upwards of 60 points here for the 211. If you can hold that ground for the next 20 or so minutes. But now Yaldara, 1.2 seconds off. Toothless, 2.4 seconds off. Sly, 1.2 seconds off of Yaldara. So pretty equal fairings here between all 3 of these cars. See, pace-wise, fastest of the 3, I believe, was Toothless there, the 202.0 to Slyvisio's 202.6. So Toothless just staying on the same line as Yaldara, and Sly is slowly finding improvements necessary to put himself in the fight for that race win. With 19.5 minutes left to go, it is absolutely still on the cards here that he could do so, and that would be truly remarkable, as at the moment, looking at our 3 drivers, we have 3, if I'm not mistaken, not completely new, as Yaldara did take a win 2 seasons ago here at Bathurst, but we have 2 drivers in the runnings for a new name on the chart of winners at Bathurst. Of course, last season was Olol, it's Chris. The season before was Yaldara. Chris again back in Season 13. Valet on both races of Season 12. Osmad Season 11. Concrete Ivy on Season 9 and 10. Right now, we could see a new name adorn that chart, being either Slyvisio, Yaldara or Toothless. Yaldara having picked up his first victory at Bathurst since Season 14. Slyvisio would be his first on record. Of course, the youngest ever driver to have won a race in AXRL, but all drivers clamber for the title of having won at Bathurst, a legendary track in Australian motorsports. So as we stay on board with them, we did touch on it earlier, and hold that thought yet again. Can't get a word in here because it looks like there may be another battle down the line here. No, it's not. It's just Luke caught up in the mix of the battle of Krieger and Ido, what made it look like a much denser pack than we had thought it were before. Let's catch on board with the driver at the back of this top 3 battle, looking to do position changes of his own very, very soon, and has had quite a lot of potency through this race in particular. It's the number 98 of Toothless. And speaking of Toothless, back onto this statistic we had earlier before we cut away, was our driver of the season's fairings. And looking in the Pro-Am category, Toothless has absolutely dominated the season, is a fan favourite driver with 40 votes for driver of the day throughout the season. All 7 rounds up until this one today has been in his favour. Evil with 18 votes, TK Zermix with 8 votes, Hudson with 6 votes, Cthulhu with 4, joint 6th between Dr. Krieger and Shamian with 3 votes, and joint 8th with Osman and Adept Loser with 2. Wooly with a single vote in the Pro-Am category this season. If we look down in the Am category, as things start to get very close now between Yaldara and Toothless, we're looking at the battle of 2nd position. And in the Am category, Wolfdan has been a fan favourite, as too has Wheelsmith, 35 and 22 overall votes this season so far. Snippy with 16 votes, I should say. Mustard with 15 votes. Skymang with 9 votes, of which he obtained in a single race, no less. Redline with 3 votes, and joint 7th between Race for Life, Cam and Bantusk, all with 2 votes, coming into the final round of the championship. Of course, not as significant as a championship win, but it just shows you who's been the fan favourites and who's had the most consistently grand drives per category over the course of this season. You can see exactly why he's a fan favourite in Pro-Am. Toothless is really punching above his weight here, fighting with the Pro-Am, fighting with not only Pro-Am, but with pro drivers up at this leg of the race. And looks to very well be challenging Yaldara for his position very, very soon here. That Ferrari has really been moving all race long in ways we couldn't even predict. Pro-Ams have really gone on to shine in this showcase in round 8 here. Of course, we saw a Pro-Am on pole. That was TK Zervinks. And now we get to see another Pro-Am really wow the crowds here. That being the number 98 of Toothless. If we're to take a look at those Pro-Am standings yet again, by the looks of it here, Toothless will be winning that Pro-Am Championship, winning in the AXRL Gold Cup, and joining the championship roster of drivers such as Ben, Yaldara, Nash GT, Saxy, Ripinora, Osman, and Ricky for those second championships. And this is an interesting dichotomy. Only a few seasons ago did Yaldara win in the Pro-Am category, getting him that seat up into Pro, of which he is now defending against a soon Pro driver to be, that being the 98 of Toothless. It's 3/10 of a second between these two for the time being. From the perspective of Toothless, that is getting closer and closer and closer here. He knows that the Ferrari, of the two mainstay cars, the Ferrari and the McLaren, of which we spoke on earlier, there's the 444s in trouble. I believe that's Luke down in the mountain section of the track, down Skyline Hill. White flags are shown for that area. Anzac Comet's had to very quickly dive out of the way, but I believe there's been a little bit of contact there, just off screen. Anzac Comet, of course, trying to let these guys get him by, has put himself in the worst possible place. And in the same stroke there, Yaldara did swing across the nose. He needed every inch of the track, and the Ferrari just wasn't in the right place for it. But as much as we would have thought that would have benefited Toothless, it's actually opened the gap up a little bit. But Yaldara does have a little bit of a nick on the back end of that McLaren. We'll see what kind of damage that's dealt as we get down to the Conrod Straight, where it's going to start creating excess drag. It's going to let Toothless catch him up very quickly. Not only that, it's put a little bit of a knock in his confidence this late on in the race. Now he's having to nurse the tyres a little bit, knowing that the pressure is well and truly on. 14.5 minutes left to go in this race here. I'd say realistically the battle for second is not as nearly on as we thought it was a few laps ago. But these two are still very close to each other. That is one to keep an eye on. We'll catch up with them later on. This is Anzac Comet, who's got damage over the nose there with the number 5 Ferrari. Could it be an extra run into the pit lane here from 21st position? So our next battle on track appears to be coming from P15. Kiss Army CV8 having to defend from Mustard. That's quickly opened up to a second as we've just viewed it there. So just seeing where could our next fights be coming from. Always one to keep an eye on here. Looking around there, there's Snippy, who as it stands is going to be winning in that AM Championship. He was 11 points ahead and has survived this race. Wolfdan is somewhere down the running order here. You can see Snippy's in 9th position. Wolfdan is down in 14th. The way it stands at the moment, he'll be winning in the AM Championship. He'll be getting that drive for Pro-Am in Season 17. And the 992 cars run into trouble there down at Forest's Elbow. We're going to quickly see on board here with Mustard. As you can see, yellow flags are out. That is Ace Wolf stranded at the side of the road there. That's quickly gone back to green flag conditions. You see, there's Ace Wolf just passing our cameras there. Heavy damage over the nose of that Porsche. That'll be into the pit lanes then for the 992. Kiss Army CV8 and Wolfdan now getting into a tangle here. 3/10 of a second dividing them here in the AM category. We'll watch on board with Kiss Army CV8. Wolfdan taking a trip over the grass here. And looking to get the move around the outside. There's trouble for the 555 car down the line there. We're going to quite quickly catch on board there, getting up into P14. Then a nice move around the outside for Kiss Army CV8. More trouble though. Yellow flags are out in this section of the track. You see stranded to the side of the road there. That's Bantusk in the Mercedes facing the wrong way up the road. That has all gone very, very wrong then for Bantusk. You see that Toothless in the meantime has now gone up into 2nd position. Yaldara now fighting back from 3rd. We'll get an on board then with Yaldara, who is now fighting himself for 2nd position. It's a shame that we missed that move there. There was something going on down the lines we had to quickly shift our attention to. The Toothless now moving up onto that front row with 11 minutes left to go. Yaldara has now got quite an attacking job to do here if he wants to maintain a good end of the road run for the Novasport family, a 1-2 finish to cap off Season 16. For Sly Vicio, it looks to be a pretty solid run to the line here. He's had a near flawless performance all race long. He's really not put a foot wrong, and let's hope that that withstands for the next 11.5 minutes. Ooh, into the walls there. So it's all going wrong now for Yaldara. He's dropping time. He's gaining damage. He's losing confidence more so as well in the number 18. See, Evil and Concrete Ivy, we've just caught on board with them. Evil's to the inside, Ivy's to the out, and Evil's up into 7th. That's very nicely done there by Evil. If we were to look in our runnings here, Toothless is up in 2nd. Evil is in 7th. That pretty much decides your Pro-Am championships for you there. And I think, had ever we seen it today, Toothless has proven right here and right now that he is the makings of a Pro Series driver. Having gone toe-to-toe with a driver like Yaldara, who is absolutely no stranger to a championship win, and moreover to a win at this track. Looking at our previous winners yet again, Yaldara took the win 2 seasons ago in the same McLaren you see on screen. So he's no stranger to good fortune here at Bathurst, but I think 3rd time is rarely the charm for this one. 3 seasons later, and it's getting a bit pear-shaped here. And that run of another win is well and truly out of his hands now. Toothless is next in line to try and hunt down Sly Vicio, but as of currently, and we'll just note on this, it looks to be a gap of around 7 seconds between Toothless and Sly. Sly's really getting the burners on now. The 555 is in even more trouble. That's Bantuski yet again down at the S's. We see here with Concrete Ivy and Evil running into the yellow flags yet again, very nearly scraping the back end of that Mercedes. It is real trouble for these two. They're battling through thick and thin here. Absolute trench warfare between Evil and Concrete Ivy for the battle of 8th position and actually subsequently 7th. So for Concrete Ivy, he looks to be getting the burner on now. It's a drag race between McLaren and Ford. You can see the Ford's just got a little bit more to give at the top end here. Up in top gear. 5th, potentially up into 6th gear as he gets around the chase, down towards the line and onto the brakes. The 444 appears to have run into some trouble down at the cuttings. Now, this late on in the race, we're seeing a lot more incidents than we'd like. Evil now relegated to 8th. Concrete Ivy up into 7th there. Really showing the power of that Ford Mustang. 204.8 to a 205.7. We must consider as well they did have to navigate quite a bit of traffic in that mountain section, courtesy of the stranded 555 of Bantusk's Mercedes. So, with our final look at the runnings here, before we're into the final laps of racing here in round 8 at Bathurst, Sly Vicio continues to lead us away, with Toothless now up into 2nd ahead of Yaldara, Wooly in 4th with Osman in 5th, Ricky in 6th, Concrete Ivy in 7th. We just saw they're getting the move on Evil from P8. Oh Lollet's Chris is up into the top 10 positions, a magnificent comeback drive given the blunders of the race start for the number 77. Snippy and Ido are incredibly close to each other here in the battle of the last of those top 10 positions. Adept Loser in 12th with Krieger in 13th. Kiss Army CB8 in 14th, Mustard 15th, 4th down in 16th, Bantusk in 17th, Shamey in 18th, Ace Wolf 19th, Anzac in 20th, Luke 21st, Cam 22nd, and Saxy 24th, provisionally last, and it appears out of this race. Oh, for Snippy, we'll stay on board here. This is the battle of P10. Ido and Adept Loser all want a slice of the pie here. We've got 3 different manufacturers invested in this. We'll actually go on board the attacking car's perspective. The 253 of Ido has had a very ambitious race so far, but he's actually going to lose the position out there. A bit of a mistake down at turn 18 has cost him P11. Now next in line to try and attack Snippy is going to be Adept Loser in the Honda. Evil's had to cut across the track quite majorly there. That could be a penalty in line. He's had to avoid some kind of problem. He's overshot the brakes and just didn't want to go in at the barriers, but that's knock of confidence is going to allow Chris a very easy path in the next 6 or so minutes to attack here. Adept Loser drops behind Ido. So we just cut back to them there. What on earth went on down at the chase? I think the Mustang was able to open the taps on the Honda there. You know, you're 8 cylinders against 6. It's rarely a battle you can afford to win. Right now, though, all of that tussling behind him has allowed Sly to get away. They're getting closer to each other, by the way, Toothless and Yaldara. They could be battling again very, very soon here to give us our crescendo act of round 8. Let's get a look at what was going on again at the back of the top 10. Snippy and Ido back again, the number 6 and the number 253 in the AM category, doing battle for the final laps of this race. Stay with the perspective of Snippy then. The battle of 10th position. He's the defending driver, attacking is the 253 Mustang in our rear view there, getting high over the curbs. Snippy just upsetting the McLaren a little bit there. He had to let off the throttle and has to do so a little bit so there before Skyline Hill, whereas the Mustang is able to absolutely chew up and spit out those curbs. Every time that he tries to get more ambitious with his racing line, the Mustang is going to be gaining and gaining fast, especially now as we get down towards the Conrod Straight here. We're at Forest's Elbow, turn 18. This is a corner that Ido's had a few struggles with over the last couple of laps. There, a little bit of a scrape on the exit of turn 18, bit of a supercars line, as it were. Now, as we get round turn 19, he's going to be able to open the taps here. What is 0.6 of a second is going to start dropping down as we get to the chase. Half a second now between them, becomes 0.4 of a second, slowly reeling him in there. Snippy is vulnerable in these straight sections of the track. Ido's just not had enough in it. That's Chris. That's the number 77. Oh my goodness, we've only just spotted the back end of that Aston Martin. It's all come undone for It's Chris for a top 10 finish. Is just out of it in 12th. Could potentially fight this back, but he's got to move heaven and earth for that move now. He's 5 seconds away from the battle on screen. And about 3 seconds away from the car in front of him. That's got to really sting there for Chris. It has been a solid comeback drive there. Just undone by the brakes down at the chase there. That's mighty unfortunate. Nonetheless, we'll stay with these drivers here. It doesn't appear to be a battle on our hands for the race lead anymore. This is our battle closest to follow. We see Skino in chat there saying hello to you. Tuning in very late into this race here. Only 3.5 minutes left to go as we're drawing on here. Snippy versus Ido for the control of 9th position. Snippy has already effectively secured that AM championship if he continues to finish in this position, or at the very least ahead of his rival. And the 444's run into trouble there. That's Luke that's running into trouble down at turn 18. These guys are going to be quickly running in on that incident, so they're going to need to be very careful here. They have a car stranded up ahead. The yellow flags are out for this section of the track. For Snippy, leading the charge here, he's going to be the first into the fray. That 444 is still down there at turn 18. You can see they're stranded across the apex. They're going to have to go a long way around. And that is going to compromise. Oh, you see in the background there, having to take the wide line. Wasn't expecting it. That was a depth loser in the Honda. Gone in at the wall. Has got a little bit of damage over his nose there. That's mighty unfortunate for him. We'll catch up with these two. Actually, no, we won't, because it looks to be getting red hot yet again. Down into the chase. We were just about to cut away and see what was going on elsewhere on track here as we get to our final laps of the race, but these two have just kicked it back into high gear there. Ido was almost looking for a move on the inside down at Murray's and was looking further back there at a move down at the chase. These two have not lost any of the steam they had a few laps ago. And Ido's looking for the inside here, was challenging for it. Snippy knows that he's bluffing, has called his bluff by sweeping across the nose of that Mustang. It's all mind games now at this leg of the battle. He knows that the Mustang's going to have him in a straight line, so he's got to have him everywhere else on track. For Snippy, it couldn't be a more intense fight for what has already been effectively a bagged championship, but he wants to try and get as good a result as he can for the winning driver of the AM category. This is for the lead of AM. The lead of Pro-Am's already been decided, and that's Toothless, who's going to run away with the Pro-Am championship title. Will be getting that Pro Series drive for 2025. The leader is on a final lap. That's Sly Visio, who we'll catch up with in a moment. But right now, it is an uber intense battle to cap off this championship between I'm Snippy and Ido. Now, where Ido would have started in Snetterton rather than over in the later rounds of the championship, well, this would have absolutely been a battle for the championship title, given the way these two are performing. And I have no doubts we'll see Ido in the runnings of it if he can stick to the whole calendar next season. So we do want to try and stay on board with them for as long as possible here. We know that Slyvisio is on the opposite end of the track, so we'll be able to see just the end of this lap before we catch on board with Sly. But running down the Conrad Straight, Snippy has been able to forge some distance here between himself and Ido. But that Mustang is going to claw all of it back by the time we get to turns 21 and 22. You can see they're coming over the hills as well. That's Adept Loser and Oh Lol, it's Chris. So we'll cut away quickly. As we can see here, Chris getting a move towards the inside on Adept Loser, up into 11th position. Is the Honda going to be able to fight him back? Looking back towards these two. Doesn't appear to be a case where they're battling anymore now. It's the battle between these two heading down into the final lap of the race. We want to try and catch on board with our race leader, but we don't want to try and miss out on any moves here. It's been red hot in the final laps of this race between these two. Oh, well, it's Chris having to claw back some of that distance lost. He doesn't know necessarily if it's going to be a move into the top 10, but with these two battling in front, Ido and Snippy side by side, Ido now to the advantage as he heads down the mountain straight. A little bit of wheel rubbing there. Now we're on to the final lap. We want to try and catch on board with our race leader then, as Slyvisio, after the blunders of season 15, is going to see the checkered flag and will join the ranks of race winners here in Bathurst to cap off the championship. It has been a fantastic drive out of Slyvisio. He couldn't have asked for more, and victory at long last at home. What a race it has been for Slyvisio there, second to none in that situation. But let's go back on board what's going on with our state of affairs here in the Battle of P9. Snippy's back out in front, and Ido now to the defensive. Not to the defensive, to the offensive. So Snippy looking to really reel this one in. I should clarify as well, for championships as far as that goes, Toothless is our Pro-Am Series champion. That's the instant replay function. Forgotten our keybinds there. That's mighty unfortunate. Toothless is a Pro-Am Series champion. We'll be getting that run into the Pro Championship for 2025, but let's quickly catch back on board what is going on then at the end of the line between Ido and Snippy. Snippy's out in front, and as far as things stand, if he can stay where he is, he'll be getting the AM Championship and we'll be moving up into the ranks of Pro-Am for 2025. Getting down towards the line then, with Ido having now dropped behind Oh Lol, it's Chris, who finally makes his move to P10. That is a proper redemption drive from Chris. But looking here with Snippy, your new AM Series champion here in Season 16. 2 championships crowned, Toothless and Snippy take a bow. What a drive it has been for both of these drivers. That is second to none stuff from all 3 categories, all race long. You couldn't have asked for more than that. You really, really couldn't. It was a fantastic race for all of these drivers involved. You can see there, champion at last for I'm Snippy and for Toothless as well. He's having his fair run of burnouts down the Skyline Hill, celebrating in style there, having finally gotten the drive he deserves up into the Pro category. He'll go for Season 17. A very well-fought battle. But your race winner for today, Slyvisio, has done second to none work here. Absolutely dominating the field. You couldn't ask for more if you tried. Well, it has been a fantastic show of force from all drivers involved. We'll try and get a word out of Slyvisio, and we'll try and get a word out of both Toothless and from Snippy. It may take us a quick moment, but let's see if we can get a word out of them, just because Toothless winning, of course, in Pro-Am, and also winning the race for the Pro-Am category as well. So that has been mighty impressive out of him. Of course, overall winner is Slyvisio here at Bathurst. But we'll try and get a word out of our 3 winners today. So let's see if we can quickly get a word. First of all, out of the race winner for round 8 of AXRL Season 16, Slyvisio. We're just going to try and contact him now. to see if he is open for an interview. Just going to quickly try and call him up and see if he's up for a chat. Sly, it's Regan Clark here from TRTN. It's been a fantastic race for you today. Finally, at long last, a race win here in Bathurst. How are you feeling?
Oh man, ecstatic. I mean, this is a little bit forced, I'll be honest, but you know, always good to win in front of the home crowd. You know, it's hard to put into words right now, man. A bit shaky at the moment.
Yeah, it must be a properly sweet feeling, of course. You were very close to that back in season 15. You've learnt from your mistakes now, and it must be a very, very good feeling to be on the top step.
Yeah, I mean, I nearly made the exact same mistake this very race, but it worked out for me, even with about 2 seconds of damage added to my pit stop. But you know, had the you know, luck.
Well, I hope to see more action out of you in season 17. It was a grand race for you all race long. Second to none performance, mate. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. I hope to go one better in the championship next season, but obviously, hope can only get me so far.
Well, all the best of luck to you. Well done for today.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Sly Visio, your race winner for today here in round 8 of the championship. And capping off the season in style there. What a performance out of him. Let's see if we can try and get a word then from our new championship winners in Pro-Am and Am. To start us off then, Toothless will win in the Pro-Am championship after a very valiant drive. Let's see if we can get a word out of them for the time being. Toothless, it's Regan Clark from TRTN. What a fantastic race it's been for you as well. Finally, a win in the Pro-Am Championships. How are you feeling? You there?
Just one moment. Just putting something on. Sorry. I'm shaky. I was crying while doing donuts. I I don't know. It's just
At a loss for words.
It's been it's been so long. I've been having troubles with my wheel for 4 seasons, and to finally have a working wheel and to win it means everything to me.
Well, it's been a fantastic drive from you today. You've had your plenty share of battles, and I think you've proven to everyone watching at home today exactly what's made you a capable pro driver. All the best of luck to you next season, up into the big leagues.
Yeah, thank you, man. It means so much.
All the best to you. Well done today. Take care.
You too.
So that was Toothless, your winner in Pro-Am and championship winner in Pro-Am. Will be moving up to the Pro Series in 2025 for season 17 of AXRL. We're going to try and get a word now out of our third and last winner of today and our championship winner in the Am category. He'll be making his move up to Pro-Am for season 17. It's been a very valiant drive out of him today. We saw him battling with all manner of driver on the grid today. Let's see if we can get a word out of Snippy just before we round out our broadcast day. Just waiting to hear back here from I'm Snippy. It may be a case where he's not available for a chat. We'll give it about 20 more seconds here. I think might be just a little bit lost for words. I mean, we saw there with Toothless as well. There's a lot to take in for these drivers here. Oh, no, here he is. So, Snippy, it's really good Clark here from TRTN. What a drive it's been for you as well. Just as I've told the others, it's been a fantastic day for you as well. How are you feeling here? Winner in AM and winner in the AM Championship.
Yeah, fucking. That was unreal. What a race.
Careful with the language there, you're on air.
Sorry, mate, sorry.
It's all right. Plenty of emotions to take in. Plenty of emotions to take in. You're going to be up into the Pro-Am category for Season 17. Obviously, I think you mentioned to me as well, you're going to have to effectively relearn racing as you make the move onto rig. So, big challenge ahead of you, but I think you've proven today you're up for the task.
Yeah, I definitely need to go up to pro. I think it's a bit unfair after that season.
Well, it's been a very valiant drive out of you today. Well done. Enjoy the victories in category as well. I hope to see you up in Pro-Am next season.
Thanks, mate.
Take care. See a lot of emotions mixed up in the thick of it there. And that effectively concludes today. Sadly, we'll not be airing any national anthems, as we've explained before. We've been forced to remove them due to some prevailing legal problems with Content ID. It's a whole can of worms we'd rather not discuss in detail anymore. So we'll just round you out by saying thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful Christmas for everyone tuning in at home. And have a great rest of your day for anyone else tuning in today. It's been a very grand finish here in Season 16. Just to recap as well, Slyvisio, your race winner today here in the overalls. Race winner, the championship winner overall is Valet. Championship winner in the AM category is Snippy, and Toothless wins in the Pro-Am. So they'll be moving up a tier going into Season 17. Hopefully we'll be able to see that for the season opener in 2025. It's been grand from us here on TRTN, and have a wonderful rest of your day and take care.